We're growing, man. I love it because it's like I tell people all the time, we're like the granola vibe. Like like scratch ingredients, homemade.
I remember the first time I went and there was a guy wearing a football jersey in there, and this is before you were there.
Teaching?
No, he was just in the audience, but he was wearing like a Saints jersey or something. And I was like, I've never seen anybody wear a football jersey to church before. So it's awesome.
It's so crazy that you say that. That's so crazy to me.
Wow.
But that's because that's the culture here.
Oh yeah, like that. You wouldn't wear that to church?
Yes.
Yeah.
You wear your Sunday's best.
I mean, I grew up going to First Pres, man.
Oh man. Yeah.
I went back to a funeral there about a month ago. One of my buddies from high school's dad died, and it was at First Pres.
Yeah.
And it was a blast from the past, man.
Oh, I bet.
I was like, singing out of the hymnal. And
yes.
I was like, now I remember why stuffy.
Yep.
Rhymes, take that out.
Leave that in. Leave that in.
He'll put that. He'll put stuff like that in there. All right, you ready, bro?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Nate Hughes, glad to have you on the podcast, man.
It's an absolute honor, man.
We had Nick on about a month ago.
Yep.
So we're gonna dig into all that stuff, but I've actually started doing a live guest intro. I don't know if any episodes have come out yet that I've actually done this, so I'm gonna read this for you.
Let's do it.
My guest today is the head pastor of Vertical Church here in Mississippi and the identical twin of our previous guest, Nick Hughes. We're going to talk today about what it actually costs and what it actually gives to stand every week and lead a congregation. Nate Hughes, welcome to the Hunter Owen podcast.
Man, honored to be here.
Dude,
thank you.
Looking forward to doing this with you, and known you for a really long time. And man, we got some fun stuff to talk about today, dude.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to where you kind of grew up. We won't go as deep of a dive into your backstory because we've kind of already talked about that with Nick, but I do want to hear your perspective on everything, which is going to be interesting for me. Take me back there. What was life for you?
Yeah, and Nick did a good job, man. I was watching that episode back, and it was like obviously a blast from the past where he said it. He'll have memories that maybe I won't be able to recall, and then him recalling them triggers them for me. And so growing up in California, he said it, man. It's you have everything at your fingertips, and you kind of take that for granted. So we grew up in Riverside, California, and we were back then growing up. We were like a 30-minute drive from the beach. Today, it's probably an hour and a half drive from the beach. With traffic now, yeah. Just because of population.
So traffic has gotten that bad?
It has gotten progressively. There was one, like we call them freeways. Out here you call them interstates or what else? There's another word for it maybe. I don't know.
Either interstate or highway.
Or highway. Yeah. So it's always freeway. It doesn't matter what it is. There was one freeway that everyone called the parking lot. It was the 91 freeway. They're like, avoid it at all costs. I kid you not, dude. Every single interstate in Southern California is that now.
I remember when I flew out, I competed in the OC Throwdown in Costa Mesa.
Yeah. Oh, dude, best part of California.
Yeah. And so I flew into LAX, and I looked it up beforehand. I was like 20, 25 mile drive. I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And then I put in my GPS once I got my rental car. It was like hour and a half. I was like, hour and a half? Dude, you're like going 10 miles an hour on the interstate the whole way.
For 20 miles, it takes you an hour and a half. And that's not an exaggeration, dude. And that's why people leave, because imagine your commute every day. You're losing 3 to 5 hours in a commute for some people.
You look around, and everybody in their car is pissed too. Like I remember seeing people screaming on the phone, like just screaming at people, honking the entire. I was like, could you imagine doing this every single day?
So it's funny you say that, man. I grew up in that, and so and Nick and I didn't know our biological father, but he also. His family, Irish immigrants, immigrated to New York. And I like to think that some of my like loud, obnoxious is that New York in me that I didn't know I had.
Or the Irish.
Yeah, or the Irish, right? Yeah, for sure. And my wife now, when I drive, she like is like, dude, you're a maniac. Like, what are you doing? And I would go to Haiti and I would lead teams to Haiti. And in Haiti, there's no traffic lights, there's no stop signs, and I felt so at home. I'm like driving, honking the horn. It's not rude to honk the horn there. And so dude, being born and raised in that, it does something to your nervous system.
Realized when I drove in Italy that honking the horn is more of a cultural thing, like because people in Italy, they'll just hit their horn all the time, and that's just like hey, I'm over here kind of thing. It's not like, but here if somebody honks at you, you're like, dude, why are you honking at me, bro?
Yes, those are fighting words. Yeah. So growing up in Southern California was the best, man. Our grandma figure, our nanny, took us to the beach like every other weekend. We had the mountains. We grew up snowboarding, and in college we would go, they would have night boarding. So they had big lights on the mountain, and you would go at night, and you'd go snowboarding at night. So it was a blast, man, having all the cultural melting pot too, you know, like I love Mississippi. I love raising my family here. Truly, there's no other place I would want to be to raise my family. But there's not real Mexican food here. There's not real Chinese food here. There's not real Thai food here. You know what I mean? So,
have you tried the coyote across the interstate?
No, I've heard about that.
It's really good.
All right,
it's a lot more authentic than I think.
I'll have to try that.
You need to try it. Yeah.
So you miss having the cultural melting pot that it's just normal to feel like a minority. So that was fun, man, and I think it's good for your soul to be around that.
Your identical twin, Nick. I asked him a question. I want to hear what you have to say. What was it like growing up as an identical twin?
Yeah, man, he did such a good job unpacking that. It was so fun. I remember I preached a sermon 8 years ago. I can't remember the exact passage, but it was about when there is a charge brought up against you, like if you accidentally murdered someone, they would let you flee to like a safe city or town. And the reason is because they wanted to give you a chance to have like a fair trial. And I remember digging into that scripture, and what it was is that person had an opportunity to flee to a community where he could belong before he was put on trial. And it led me to looking up, and you've seen this triangle. You remember the pyramid of success? And it's got all of the things that you need to be successful. Well, it's our hierarchy of needs. And there was a guy, I took notes. So his name is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
And at the very bottom is your basic needs for human survival. So think like a house, food, water. You need those to survive. And then after that, it was safety. I feel secure and protected, and you have financial security. So you're not worried about like, where's my next meal going to come from, you know? And then the third up the pyramid was a sense of belonging. I'm loved and I'm connected. And then after that, esteem was there. So I feel valued and respected. And then the highest pinnacle of the pyramid was purpose. So you're doing what you were created to do. Right. And for me, as an identical twin, and I'm not here to argue against Maslow and be like, he was wrong, and you're going to learn this with your girls, man. When you're an identical twin, it's funny, that sense of belonging was the middle of the pyramid, but that sense of belonging gave me safety and it gave me security. So that sense of belonging gave me everything, and it gave me esteem, because ultimately, if you don't like me, I don't care. I've got a twin brother that loves me. You feel me? And so I need to dig into this, and I've got like 10 books that I want to write, but 10
books, not just one. 10.
No, I've got 10, dude. And so maybe with ChatGPT and Claude, I can actually do it. Yeah. But there's something about having a secure attachment, and psychologists write about this all the time. Yeah. So I had the most secure attachment being an identical twin, and it didn't matter how chaotic the world was around me. I had someone to endure with me.
That's interesting, because I've talked to my wife about this, and you know how you start taking your kids to like school or daycare or church or whatever, and a lot of times the kids are just freaking out, screaming. Our girls have never been that way, and I think it's because they go together. And so we drop them off, and they're just like, okay, well, I'm not alone. I'm here with my sister. And so they've never had an issue getting dropped off. They're actually excited to go to school, where there's kids that go to school for months that are in their class that are crying every single time they get dropped off. And I really think that has been really big for them.
Bro, I am a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not going to shower that on your podcast. But dude, it almost made me cry, because I think that we live in a culture where we're taught, get them in the room and sleep train them as fast as you can. And we're taught this hyper independence. Bro, and this is why I'm a pastor today, because when I read the Bible and I learn about who God is, I see that he's a relational being. We were not created to be hyper independent. And you just nailed it, dude. Your daughters have this sense of security because they know they're not alone. And I think that we try to ingrain that in people way too soon. And we make it seem like there's something wrong with them if they're not okay because they feel alone.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you get your sense of yourself when you grow up as an identical twin?
Man, it's funny, bro, because every time we talk about our story, we say we, and I do it all the time. And I got to a point in my life where it made me feel a little insecure when I was talking to people that like, maybe I had to like look good in front of, or maybe it was like being interviewed by a pastor. I was like, I need to have a sense of security and identity. So I need to just leave my twin brother out of my upbringing, not intentionally say I, right? Like when I grew up, but I don't know, man. It's relationships. Carl Jung says this, right? He says that relationships, without them, you need that mirror to learn your flaws and also to see your strengths too. And so I think having that, it revealed to me my strengths, my weaknesses, and I was always confronted with that mirror. And we'll talk about it at the end, but there's a book that I read too about models in our life. Like we learn what to want from looking at other people and seeing what they want. And so I had this mirror of, we grew up together and we had the same desires, or if he wanted something, then I wanted it, you know? And so I think more than anything, it gave me a secure sense of self and a strong identity, but it was more of a communal identity, like tribes, dude.
Yeah.
I bet you primitive tribes like grew up and you couldn't have a hyper individual sense of identity. It was about your community.
Did that bother you that people, and I ask more twins questions than I think most people would, just because of my girls. And it's interesting to me, and I want to learn, and I want to know how they're going to experience the world. Yeah. Did it bother you that your friends or whoever would always say the twins are coming, as opposed to here comes Nate?
Bro, that's such a good question. And you hear about like older and younger siblings where like the older sibling starts to resent the younger one because it's like, these are my friends. That never was an issue.
Really?
It never was. I think I'm still in the middle of processing this, and something for you and I can process together too, especially as you're raising twin girls. Again, in this book that I'm reading, it talks about rivalry only exists. There's a greater potential for rivalry the closer the relationship. So you're not going to have a rival if you don't know this person.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The more alike you are with someone, the more potential there is for rivalry. And in this book, it talked about identical twins have the greatest potential for that sibling rivalry. But because of the way Nick and I grew up, we were confronted with the reality that if we're not good, then we're screwed.
That makes sense.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I don't know what that means for kids that are identical twins that grow up with secure father and mother in the house. That's something to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I asked somebody that I knew that was a twin, and I asked her what advice she had, and she said, get them 2 birthday cakes. Because I think her and her brother shared a birthday cake, or her.
You know what? As I reflect back early on, I think some of that stuff was tough early on.
Yeah.
So I think that's wise.
Yeah.
You know, like let them blow out their own candles.
Yeah.
Because there were times where we both were blowing out the candles together. Because I mean, we were poor growing up, dude,
right.
You know. But yeah, that's a good piece of advice.
Were y'all more alike or more different than people would assume? I think everybody would assume that y'all are alike.
Yeah, I think that there are distinct things about our personalities that are more different than people would realize. But I think the core of who we are, especially our mannerisms and all that, are way more alike. But I love the Enneagram, dude.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And I am an 8 on the Enneagram. I'm a challenger. And he's a 7. Like that, Nick will.
He goes to 8 too, though.
He does. Yeah. Oh yeah, because your wings. You go to your wings, and you have your stress and your health.
I can see that though. Do you go to 7 sometimes?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. If I'm at a restaurant, I'm like, I want to order the whole menu. I'm serious. But what happens with Nick is he lives in that 7.
Yeah.
And it's funny, dude. We'll be making plans, and I'm like, bro, we can't do all that. So, and he's like, no, yeah, we can. And I'm like, no, we can't.
I don't want to like overharp talking about Nick on this podcast, but it always cracks me up. It'll be like a Thursday, and he's like, hey man, I'm heading down tomorrow to New Orleans to go to this Pelicans game. Why don't you go with me? I got tickets. I'm like, bro, I got a job and a family. And I can't just get in the car and drive to New Orleans on a whim, man. But he's always been like that. I love that about him.
he's got a spirit of adventure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And dude, talk about him, because you and him have that long-standing relationship.
I see him.
Yeah.
I literally see him like 3 days a week at Cups. We'll walk in and I'm like, I saw him yesterday. I'm like, I got your brother on tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what really sticks out to you about that period of time growing up in California, going into those high school years? What do you really remember?
I think that those early years marked me for the rest of my life. And Nick did a good job of talking about this. We all have things that happen to us in our life. And you asked him, you said, man, did you guys know that you were just going to make it out? Were you like, you knew how bad life was and you're like, we're getting out of this. Mm-hmm. There's an aspect of life where it happens and then you have your perspective and you choose the narrative. And so early on, man, it marked me it's kind of funny, dude. Early on at Vertical, I would talk about, hey, I grew up real poor. And my brother told me, he's like, one of my students ended up at your church on Sunday. And he said, my student mentioned that all you did was talk about how poor you and your brother were. And so it was like a running joke, But growing up those early years in California, it marked me to never judge someone. Definitely not off appearance, but never judge someone's story or their problems or their addictions, because all around us, man, like our immediate family, it was drug addiction. Mm-hmm. It was in and out of prison. And so I know what it feels like, even in elementary school, dude, looking back, I didn't know this at the time, but our teachers, I had this thought, man, and it was a real rough thought, but my mom, and this wasn't her identity, right? But if she was labeled by society, she was a drug addict and she was a prostitute, like legit. And so I remember being in elementary school and our teachers would look at us differently, like we were the troubled kids, and they would try to protect us. And so growing up and having that season of life, I'm now pastoring a church and I don't want anyone to feel like they're not welcome there because of their past or their current struggle. And so it marked me, man. Like California's a melting pot. Red Hot Chili Peppers sing a song about it, but that dark underbelly of society is so prevalent there. Drugs come from Mexico into Southern California and go out to the rest of the country, dude. Like it's wild.
I had a really good conversation about spiritual warfare with Jared Willis.
Yeah.
And is there a different feel or sense in California than there is in Mississippi?
Bro, not to get all woo-woo on us, but
no, please do.
Well, yeah, no, I love this, man. Yeah. In the Bible, it talks about in the Old Testament that there are specific spirits or demonic forces that have territory. And I do think you can get as deep and as spiritual as you want, or you can like make it, you can wrap the medicine up in the peanut butter and try to feed it to people, right? Like you can make it a little bit more presentable. There is a spirit or a culture about certain territories and parts of the world. I think California has that ugly underbelly of evil, but then on the surface, it's like Silicon Valley, it's entrepreneurs, it's performance. I still think that's demonic, dude. Like there's some evil forces that are, and we can call them false idols, right? So I was actually talking to a buddy. It's my job to know what those are in this area because I'm the pastor of a church that is located in Madison, Gluckstadt, Mississippi. So I would actually ask you, what do you think that spirit is here in Mississippi? I have a perspective and an opinion, but I think you would know better than me.
What it is for people that live in Madison.
Yeah.
Madison specifically. I would say looking like you got everything together, looking like you're wealthy and that you look like you're a Christian, that you go to church. It's all about appearance, but what's going on under the surface, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're in the Bible Belt, right? But how prevalent is that faith and belief? And how deep, a lot of, it's more, all the relationships are service level, polite, super friendly, but how deep are you actually getting with your relationships and how deep is your walk actually? As opposed to in California, it's not like presented as, oh, I'm a Christian. If you're a Christian, you're a Christian. I've heard people talk about that before, like in other parts of the world. Or here, it's like, that's the end thing to be Christian. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And that is a big stereotype of nominal Christianity, right? We're Christians by name, but maybe not by heart or spirit, And I don't ever want to dumb things down to just a stereotype, but I think that you nailed it, man. What I see here is there's bubbles, and you either went to State, you either went to Ole Miss, you maybe went to Southern, maybe you stayed local, went to MC. But when you bump up against those bubbles, you can see it and you're like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to infiltrate that. It's the good old boys, it's the lawyers, the attorneys, or the business leaders, or the people who pride themselves on being like country, like you see a lot of that. But I agree with you. The spirit is, we got to get the house, we got to get the Denali or whatever it is, we got to look presentable, and we got to be good at shaking people's hands and saving face.
That's interesting, because I've been in multiple bubbles in my life, from where I went to high school and then going to college. Even though I was 10 minutes away from home, it was a completely different world. And then Madison is so much different than Northeast Jackson, where I grew up. People don't realize how different. It's like completely different. And no matter what you're doing, you're not going to break into this certain bubble.
You're not.
And it's a certain way of doing things. Life that we all vacation the same place. We go to the same college. Our dads all work together or are in the similar jobs. And then you go to Madison, it's close, but it's also very different in a lot of ways. It's interesting.
Yep.
I had a buddy that told me he had lived overseas for a very long time, like a year, I think. And he said, we were talking about this spiritual warfare thing a little bit. He said he hadn't thought about like making money or career or anything the entire time he was gone. He said, like, as soon as he touched down in America, it was like all these thoughts started flooding through his head. And so he was kind of processing, is that, spiritual warfare? And that's what is predominant in the USA. You got to make as much money as you can, have the big career, be successful, all that type of stuff. Whereas in other parts of the world, like in Asia, it's like shame and the shame. I forget.
Honor and shame.
Honor and shame. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to me.
I think people talk about this a lot too. When you go to third world countries, you see evil and it's prevalent. Like you're like,
it's very out in the open.
It's out in the open, right? There's even places still doing human sacrifices and crazy stuff like that. Here in the United States of America, of course, the enemy, the devil, is going to work in a way that is different here. And I was just processing this as you were sharing. I think the greatest thing that the enemy can convince all of us to is to sacrifice our families on the idol of work, of success, of performance. And man, I'm a living testament to it, man. I have to remind myself this not every day, but the reason why my brother and I are healthy, functioning adults, thriving, you could say, right? Families, married. It's because we had each other, but there were people that I think God strategically placed throughout our life that loved us. And it's not people that had a ton of money. And so if we would have never had those secure attachments from a grandmother figure that was not related by blood, a man that wanted to be our dad but didn't win the paternity test, right? But loved us like he was our dad. If we didn't have a family that adopted us when our mom had her stroke, those secure attachments throughout our life of love, we would probably be either in prison or addicted to something right now.
Wow.
And so what's the greatest thing that we can leave behind? Bro, it's not the business you build. It's not the retirement account that you leave your girls. It's the sense of belonging and the love that you deposited into them that will live long after you're gone. And it's a legacy of faith. It's not the financial, because Nick and I didn't get left any finances. You know what I mean? But we're good today.
Yeah.
Because we had people that loved us well.
Tell me about some of those people.
Oh my gosh, dude. We had the most broken, chaotic upbringing ever, dude. Like probably moved 12 times, and at an early age, it was our nanny, who's still alive to this day. She's in her 90s, and we don't get to see her enough, man. She is our guardian angel. So I don't know. Nanny is the mom of the man that was dating my mom when she got pregnant with my brother and I. But that man ended up not being our father. Dude, I've got a crazy story about this, and this is going to be another book. So growing up, Nick and I, when we got old enough, we always heard, we were curious. We're like, man, his name is Reed. So Nanny, her name is Margaret Miles. Reed, her son, his name is Reed Miles. My name is Nathan Reed Hughes. So I was named after Reed. Reed is not our biological father.
Wow.
Growing up, we always heard like, yeah, your mom, she was really promiscuous and she had to have a paternity test with a man that she had a previous son with, our older half brother. Reed and our dad, our biological father.
So 3 different guys.
3 different guys. And it was always, Reed wanted to be your guys' dad, and he wished he was, and he was your dad. And we loved him like he was our dad. And as I got older, honestly, it was just a year ago, I was talking to my biological father, found out he was going through an illness. He didn't have long to live. And I would just pick up the phone and try to ring him and talk to him. And he started telling me the story about the day that he met my mom. So what we grew up hearing about, he's telling from his perspective, right? And I know he's going to try to make himself sound better. And he's like, Nate, I was in my house in downtown Riverside, and there was this woman outside working, trying to get her car going. She looks like she was broken down. And he's like, I went out to try to help her, and she ends up in my house, and all of a sudden she's taking a bath. And I'm just like, bruh, like you probably told her, go freshen up, you know? Yeah. And he's trying to make himself sound good. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I asked her, like, are you seeing anyone? No, you didn't, dude. And she convinced me that she couldn't get pregnant. She had her tubes tied, She was like 35, 36. And he said, so we end up watching a movie, right? This is when Netflix and chill originated. So then he tells me, he's like, all of a sudden it's like 1 a.m. and this guy's knocking on my front door. And he said, it was Reed. And he was looking for your mom.
Wow.
And he said, didn't see your mom. Never again. It was a one-night stand.
Wow.
He said, all of a sudden your mom ends up back up at my door, and she's like, you owe me child support. These kids are yours. So I got the like other intimate details of that story. And so biological father didn't have anything to do with us our whole life. Reed was always around, but him and my mom were not gelling. So that was toxic and dysfunctional. Reed's mom took care of us. So my mom addicted to drugs. Nanny took us to our doctor's appointments, dropped us off at school, picked us up. So then our mom ends up losing her house. We move in with Nanny for a short time. This happens everywhere. They want the court system wants to find the next of kin for the kids. So they will go to an aunt, uncle. They'll go to family. Nanny couldn't raise us. Like the court system was like, no, like that's not going to happen. So then we went to go live with our uncle, our mom's brother. And he loved us well, man, but he had a track record of prison and tough guy. But thank God he raised us for a couple of years because he taught us discipline. I think Nick talked about this. We showed up at his house and we could do like 3 push-ups. And then we're like 9 years old doing like 30 push-ups. Everybody used to be like, why do you guys walk around with your chest poked out? Like, we started doing push-ups at 9, you know? So then he ends up going back to prison, and we move in with our aunt, our mom's sister. They had kids that went wayward and were super dysfunctional, so they didn't have faith in their ability to raise us. And Nick shared this, man. I don't want to echo everything that he shared, but then we moved back in with our mom. She met a guy that, who knows, right? So those were the dark years in high school. But then John's family became a safe haven for us. They were another family that loved us so well, man. And
trying to keep track of y'all's like journey as kids is kind of like, it reminds me of that meme of like Charlie from Always Sunny when he's like got the thing up on the wall and he's like,
yeah. That's what it is, dude.
Yeah. Yep. So you reconnected with your biological dad. How did that come about?
It was, Nick and I wore a chip on our shoulder of like, we don't care about this guy. We don't need to find him. We don't want anything to do with him. And when I got to the church in Arizona that I was working at, I was 25. And my mentor, my direct report, he was like, have you ever tried to look for your dad? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he started looking for him. That triggered that thought in my mind to just say, hey, see if he's out there. Long story short, end up connecting with his brother, and his brother was like, what do you guys want? You know? And ended up meeting him. He's like a hippie weirdo in Southern California, but he was a cool guy. And once he realized that we didn't want anything, Nick ended up in California at the same time. We were at a conference, a church conference, and I set it up for our uncle that we had just met to take us to where our dad was living. And we kind of surprised him. And the uncle's knocking on the door and got him to come outside. And I think did Nick talk about this in his podcast episode?
Maybe a little.
So he comes out and he's like, no. Like very much like, well, I don't know if it's shame or he thinks we're there for money. And Nick is like, dude, we don't want anything. We just wanted to say hi. And I'll never forget it, man. It was like a 15-minute conversation. It was cool. We were getting ready to leave, and Nick is a very like sensitive, loving, kind, like he cries a lot more than I do. And I admire it. He looks at our dad and he goes, hey, all of our memories with you physically, because he took us every other weekend for a season. He says, all of our memories with you are good memories.
Wow.
And dude, this is crazy. He says, you were a good dad.
Wow.
Bro, what? And it looked like a spiritual shotgun blasted this guy in his chest.
Really?
Dude, yes. I can feel it. I still get goosebumps. He like visibly moves back and he starts bawling.
Gosh.
And he's like, man, your mom made it all about the money. They just wanted the money, referencing child support. And Nick was just like, I just need you to know that.
Wow.
And so that was like our parting ways. And so never saw him physically again after that. We were 27. It's been over 10 years. And he just passed like 2 months ago.
But you still were able to keep in touch with him?
Yeah, I kept in touch with him via text here and there. And then I talked with him on the phone a good amount over the last year.
So he just passed. How did that feel?
Man, it's strange knowing that like the people, and he didn't know us growing up, right? But having our mom pass 4 years ago and now knowing he passed, it's kind of like our nanny is like the last physical person here that kind of knows us since babies. But yeah, man, I don't think that we have, honestly, it's been 2 months and haven't really processed it much.
Yeah.
You grieve what could have been, but you don't grieve what was because there wasn't much there. You know, it's sad. My brother actually was talking to me. He was teaching at his church and he said, man, we probably would have been worse off if he was physically present in our lives.
Really?
Yeah. And it was this thought that he was going to share with his church of, you dads, you men, you think that you're doing a good job because you're physically present, but sometimes your physical presence can do more harm if you're not emotionally engaged.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that powerful?
Yeah. Man, y'all's story is just, for y'all to end up where you are, it's like stranger than fiction. Like nobody could write that.
Bro,
only God could write that.
Bro, I know.
Like for even hearing the way that your parents met, you know, like
I
the car
know.
broke down and just.
That's what I'm saying, bro. 10 books. I've got them ready to roll, dude.
Let me know. I'm going to buy it.
No, isn't it insane, dude?
It is.
Like, and it's weird because it doesn't, I feel like I'm like talking about it as like an outsider, you know? And I'm not like disassociating because it was so rough. It's just, you think like you said, it's stranger than fiction. It's crazy.
Well, you know, when I think back on my life, I mean, I have my present father, present mother, they're still together. So I have this, my father and my mother, they're in my head. When you look back on your life, who do you think are like the top people that had the biggest impact to you, or the hierarchy, the most important people in your life from up until 18?
Up until 18, it was, Nanny was always there. She was that primary voice of love that we always heard. Because I remember hearing something that like, there's a voice of love that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. And hopefully it's your mother and father or your grandma and grandpa, right? Hopefully they're the ones that are like reminding you of how loved you are. Nanny is that voice that will always be with us. Our mom too, of like, we physically had our mom until we were 8 years old. And she would love us, snuggle us, kiss us all over our face, and we would laugh and try to like push her away. So we've got those memories, you know, and she did the best that she could given her circumstances. And Reed is another one. Reed was the guy that like from birth until 7, he would come over, spend time with us. He would like, dude, crazy story with him. He would always, in our early years, like 3, when you start having memories, 3, 4, 5, he would put Nick and I to bed in our mom's apartment. And then we would wake up the next morning and he'd be gone. And Nick and I would be pissed when we would wake up, dude. We'd be like, where'd you go? What the heck? He was on hospice in his mom's little retirement mobile home, Nanny. And I remember Nick and I came to visit him and we were with him, and Nick ended up flying back to Mississippi. This was like 6 years ago. And I remember I was there with him, and the last morning that I was going to see him, I woke up at like 4 a.m. to drive back to Arizona, and I couldn't say goodbye. And I remember I left and I told Nanny, I was like, I love you. I was like, I can't say goodbye. It hurts too much. And I'm driving back and he calls me, and I know I'm a pastor, right? But he's like, you son of a bitch. He's like, you dog. And he's laughing. He's like, you left without saying goodbye. And I was like, Reed, It was too hard.
Wow.
And he said, brother, he always called us brothers, and he called us Bubbas. He said, brother, he said, now you know how I felt every time.
Wow.
I would leave.
Wow.
He's like, I couldn't say goodbye.
Man.
Isn't that crazy, dude?
Man, so what did you say happened? Did you say he passed too?
He passed. I think that just the lifestyle ended up catching him and my mom, and he ended up having like cancer and stuff that just took over his whole body.
How were those two losses for you? And
Dude, brother? His was tough, man. And then my mom's was tough. You got to hear this, dude. I am at my last year at my previous church, which I loved my time there, but I could sense that my leadership lid, I was hitting my ceiling, and I was like, okay, I'm outgrowing my position in this church. I tried to make it about the church. I was like, man, how come you guys won't promote me? I want to plant a campus. I finally came to terms like, I outgrew it. God's calling me somewhere else. So it was the year I accepted the position to come to Vertical. So my wife and I just had our son. Mom just passes, accept a new career change, and we moved from Arizona to Mississippi.
Man.
So that was 4 major, like, counselors have a list of trauma.
Yeah.
And
those are all in your trauma.
Those are all the highest. Those are all the highest, all bro.
1 year.
Death of a loved one, a career change, a move across country. Gosh. So my mom, I was like, I don't even think I had time to like process it, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, year 1, new job, just immersed in a totally different culture.
Man. Have you processed it since?
I feel like I have. And it's crazy because her ashes were mailed to us by our older sister, and she's buried at Nick's church. Our mom is.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of like another full circle moment, man. Like our mom never physically ever came to Mississippi, but like her ashes are here and her boys are here.
Wow.
It's crazy, dude.
Take me to going into college. I'm just a little curious about your football career. Tell me about that.
Man, dude, we loved football. And we were oddly bigger than everyone else from an early age.
Because of the push-ups.
Just for real. And we got into our freshman year of high school, and so this is what's crazy too, man. 8th grade, Nick was a safety.
Really?
Well, I was a safety and Nick was a quarterback.
Really?
And we were playing 8th grade flag football to prepare us for freshman tackle football. We played Pop Warner tackle football too in our early years. But 8th grade, he was a quarterback, I was a safety. So we were always the most athletic kids. We were living with our aunt in the high desert. Our mom ends up meeting her boyfriend, and we move after being in that area for 3 years. So the high school we were going to go play football at, and all the friends we made, it was like, boom, they were cut off. So from 8th grade summer, Nick talked about this. We were living with our mom, no supervision, nothing. We were the laziest, ended up becoming the fattest kids ever, dude. And it's sad. We went from 6 foot, 170 pounds as 8th grade boys. So 13 years old, dude. We were 6 foot, 220 pounds our freshman year of high school, bro.
Was that 50 pounds?
Yeah, dude.
Y'all were eating.
So bro, I'm a nose guard now.
Yeah.
And he's a right guard.
Yeah.
So we were in the trenches and we were aggressive. We had that mean streak about us. And Nick talked about this. It was a way for us to release that pent up anger and aggression. So football, I'm a nose guard, and dude, we excelled. But I'm like barely over 6 foot to this day. Nick is like a half an inch taller than me. So we didn't grow much more. So then we ended up going to college, and now I'm a stand-up defensive end. And I'm like six foot, 230 pounds. And I'm getting more athletic and I'm getting more explosive. So they moved me to a stand-up rushing end. Nick ended up losing like 70 pounds, dude.
Really?
And he's like, my football career's over. And I'm like, yeah, good for you, dude. And so I played 3 total seasons. I was a redshirt freshman, and I got to where we were an NAIA school that ended up becoming D2.
Okay.
So they could give partial scholarships. In my 3rd year, I ended up getting money from football that with my academic scholarship, I had a full ride.
Nice.
There was something that happened, man, to this day, it still bothers me, but I herniated a disc from doing deadlifts as a senior in high school, and you have nerves that run through your spine and through your lower extremities.
Yeah.
Bro, I had medial knee pain on my right knee running through like it felt like underneath my kneecap. And I had to get in an athletic stance, put my hand in the ground, or just drive off the ball. And I could do it. Like I could hit a 300-pound offensive lineman. I had a motor unlike any other dude, and I would drive them off the ball. I got to where I had shooting knee pain, and they're like, oh, maybe your patella is not tracking correctly. Ended up finding out it's my low back that's causing that pain. It's like shooting nerve pain in my knee. So going into my third year, I tried to take like some medical time off, and I was just like, I can't do what I used to do.
Wow.
So I kind of had to like retire. And so that was
feel?
An identity crisis.
Yeah.
Big time, dude. This was a sport I had played since I was 9 years old, and I was 21 at that time. And so that was where I was confronted with the reality of, man, there's more to life than football, but there's aspects of football that I'll carry with me forever. You know,
like what?
Being on a team, sharing a common mission and working towards a common goal, and bleeding, sweating, and crying with people when there's hard times, and celebrating with people when there's good times. Our strength coach said it in college. He's like, you're never going to have another season of your life that feels like this. And you know that, being an athlete.
You form a bond with guys, especially the guys that I played baseball with in college, man. I'll see them and it's like, I hadn't seen him in 15 years, and it's like we're right back in the same. It's just a bond that's on another level that you really can't get with any other guys, especially. There are times when I miss it, man. You know, you miss going to practice every day with the same guys. You miss going to the games. You miss having that common goal, and you find it in work and in other careers. But there's nothing like that, man. There's
nothing like it, and you're right. I think that's why your gyms are so successful, you know, because there's a sense of community that people find here, and there's a cause. You're trying to grow physically, and it helps you grow emotionally, which I think it helps you grow spiritually too. But I tried to recreate it on my team at my church too, you know? Like I want to make the vision so compelling that we're committed to the cause. We're giving our life to this, man. Yeah. Like you literally are giving your time and your energy to the advancement of this mission. Yeah. And all of us are committed to doing whatever it takes to see that mission fulfilled.
Man, I love that. Where'd you go from retiring from football to the next steps?
I think that's when the call to ministry happened, because I was an exercise science physiology undergraduate degree. I loved fitness. Like the weight room is where I found peace. It's where I found camaraderie. It's where I found purpose, because you could progress. And I was like, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach for a football team. That would be so sick. Yeah. If I could be a high school weight room teacher, and then coach football and have 2 periods off, you know, that would have been the dream, dude. Yeah. If something ever happens with church and I get disqualified from ministry, I'll do that.
You'll go do that.
Yeah. But I was wrestling, and then my mom had her stroke. I was actually applying for a doctorate of physical therapy program, and I was at this crossroads where I went and did a lot of physical therapy with injuries. And no offense to physical therapists, I feel like they're not, like today, it's almost like they're not as respected, because people can just chat GPT stuff and do their own thing. They're viewed as like a glorified personal trainer. And I do think there's so much more than that. I was confronted with the reality that if I wasn't careful, I saw a lot of like elderly people in this confined space. And I also was a personal trainer. And so I was like, man, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. That's not what I feel called to. I ended up being offered a scholarship to go to seminary. And so I was literally praying. I'm like, God, I can go become a physical therapist, help people like my mom who are paralyzed, and maybe I can help them walk again. Or maybe you're calling me to walk down this road of like not helping people physically, but I'll help them spiritually. And I was confronted with, there are physical therapists that I think are living out their calling. For me, it was evident that God was calling me to be someone that preached his word, that taught his word. Because I never sought to develop any of those skill sets, it was clear that God had gifted me with a lot of that.
Let's go back to where your faith came into the picture.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Early on, we would be taken periodically to church. And so our uncle, when we went to go live with him, he would take us to church. And then our nanny would always talk to us about God and pray for us, you know, but we never had anything consistent in our life. So then when we got into high school, John is our best friend. John's family takes us in. And early on, before our mom had her stroke, they would always say, boys, you can stay here all weekend long, but you got to get up on Sunday morning. You got to come to church with us. And it's funny, dude, they knew the way to our heart. We were going to church at Cal Baptist University, and the pastor's name was Matt Brown, and the church is called Sandals Church. Amazing church. Love it. It's one of the first churches we actually consistently walked into.
Still around?
It's still around, thriving, thriving. So at Cal Baptist, it's a college, and on Sundays they had all you can eat brunch on the college campus.
I was going to say they knew the way to your heart through your stomach.
Yes. So they said, boys, if you go to church with us on Sunday, we'll go to the buffet after. Remember we gained 50 pounds that summer, bro. Yeah. So we were like, let's do it. And it exposed us to the teaching of the Bible, you know? And then when I got into college, I had this family that lavished me with the love of God. Lavished. Treated us like we were their flesh and blood, dude. Wow. Then in college, we get connected to a church, and this pastor, preacher, I had never experienced preaching like his before. His ability to exposit the text, like to take the true context and meaning behind the original text, but then make it so applicable and relatable to where you were in that moment, it inspired me. So that man, I tried my hardest to meet him and like work for him. That's a long story, but it never worked out. But that man single-handedly has like been one of my greatest influences on my preaching and teaching.
Wow. Have you told him that?
I think I might have told him it via like a Instagram comment, but he probably didn't see it. Yeah.
So move forward, you decide you're going from the, dabbling in your faith as you started out to now you're thinking about going to seminary. Tell me about that decision.
Dude, it was a clear call. And I'll tell young people today, there has to be a clear call in your life to go into full-time ministry. I think all of us are full-time ministers. All of us are. If you're a Christian, you're a minister of the gospel. You're a minister of reconciliation. We can talk about that all day. But to go into full-time ministry, it has to be a clear calling because it costs so much. It's such a heavy responsibility. I started to get to where like I started to view the world completely differently. Oh, I remember I was watching movies, man, and I think it was like Seabiscuit or something like that. That horse, and I'm like, God's speaking to me through this movie, dude. Wow. And I think there's a scene in that movie where she was like, she was talking about her calling to race horses or whatever. And I'm like, that's how I feel about God's word, man. Wow. And everywhere like I would go, everything I would see, it was always coming back to this call in my life. So much so to where I got this like very prestigious scholarship. I had to maintain in like an A average in graduate school. I went from studying human anatomy and physiology and biology to now basically having to become this like theologian and someone who studied literature. Dude, I remember I was in my first seminary class and he goes, the Pauline text. And I was like, who's Pauline? bro, I'll never forget this. And I hope there's people that are listening to this podcast and they ask the same question. In a class full of people who had an undergrad Bible degree, I did not. I'm in a graduate study scholarship program. He calls on me and I said, who's Pauline? Bro, he had the prettiest blue eyes, old man, and he looks at me with this twinkle in his eyes and he said, the Apostle Paul.
Wow.
It's called the Pauline letters. And I just was like ashamed, dude. I was like, what am I doing, bro? Man. But I think God has used the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. And that's my story, man.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Have you and Nick compared the seminary that you went to compared to RTS?
Bro.
I want to hear it.
Yeah. So when I tell people the seminary that I went to, especially in this culture, they think I'm some like liberal, like affirming, wild person. And I did seminary at Azusa Pacific University and Fuller Theological Seminary. People don't really know. They're not renowned seminaries. It's a heavy Wesleyan influence, which honestly, dude, I didn't know what a lot of this stuff meant. And you kind of have to learn what it means. It was a predominantly Methodist influence. And you're either like a Wesleyan Methodist or you're a Reformed Calvinist. And honestly, dude, I hate treading these waters because I don't want to reach people that are in this world. I want to reach people that don't know about this stuff. You know what I mean? But I still enjoy talking about it, obviously.
Absolutely.
So Nick is a Reformed seminary student and a New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary student. I am a non-denominational mutt.
I love that.
And so
it makes sense though that you should be knowing your backstory.
Yeah. Exactly. And so if I'm ever going to be a part of a church, it's going to be for the ragamuffins and the mutts of this world, dude. It's not going to be for the presbyters who put on their Sunday best or the Baptists, Nick and I used to get in theological debates about all of those hot topics, especially he mentioned that he almost went to the master's seminary. Nick was turning into this staunch Pharisee a-hole, dude. And I was like, bro, like, look at you, man. And he finally broke out of that bubble and he's like, dude, I was going to turn into a monster if I would have went to that seminary.
Yeah, he did say that.
And I know great people that went to the master's seminary. So yeah, but it's fun to be able to have such a well-rounded theological background.
Yeah. Have you read the Ragamuffin Gospel?
Oh yeah. By Brennan Manning.
So good.
Phenomenal, dude. Yeah. Everybody should read that book.
Yeah. Yeah, I read it recently, and then somebody else mentioned on the podcast, and they recommended it. So, yeah, my dad went to RTS. And so,
he did? Yeah.
And so I actually lived there when I was a kid, and we talked about it on the podcast, but I was there when I was like 5, 6, or 7 over there in Clinton.
Bro.
Yeah.
Nick, I came to visit him in Mississippi when he was living on campus, and I was like, this is worse than some of the hoods we grew up in Southern California, bro.
So we weren't on campus. We were down the road in the townhouses, and we almost got broken in like 8 or 9 times. And
oh, dude.
Yeah. Where'd you go after?
After seminary?
Yeah.
This is where the story gets really crazy.
It hadn't been crazy
yet. Dude. And honestly, I saw you trying to keep up with like all the moving parts. This is even harder.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. So when we graduated college, Nick and I had never been separated, and he talked about this. The longest was he went to Hawaii for a summer with a girlfriend, and that was like 3 months that we were separated. I ended up getting the scholarship for seminary, and then he ends up accepting a call to be a missionary in Africa. For 2 years he was there. He ends up developing a relationship with Paul Chinchin, who Paul Chinchin's dad is renowned in this area of Jackson. Jack Chinchin is his name. And my brother and Paul Chinchin, man, one of the most amazing men I've ever met in my entire life. The way that he believed in people and championed them, unlike anyone I've ever met to this day. And the way that he believed in my brother and championed him, dude, that warmed my heart. So he opened the door, like my brother said, to come to Mississippi. My brother and him had an amazing relationship. So when he wasn't in Africa, he furloughed here in Mississippi. I end up visiting Nick and meet Pastor Rob Futrell, and Nick is interning at Broadmoor. And I just came to visit. My brother and Rob got to talking, and Rob invited me to be a student intern at Broadmoor. So, I mean, dude, that's like the lowest on the totem pole, right? I'd been in seminary for 2 going on 3 years. It was a 5-year program. I was confronted with this reality where I did internships. I started in kids ministry. I was teaching Sunday school to 3rd graders, 4th graders, 5th graders. And it was beautiful. I think everybody should start there. And I was confronted with this reality of like, I'll put a pause on this seminary degree and I'm going to go get even more real life ministry experience. So I made the decision to leave California and come to Mississippi, moved here. That's 2015. That's when I met you.
Yeah.
And that we had I'll never forget being in the car with you going to get faded by Tomas.
Yeah, out in Clinton. Yeah.
Yeah. And I came here for a summer and had the best time of my life. My brother and I reunited for the first time.
Yeah.
And Broadmoor is an amazing, thriving church. All of us were there, right, together. Yeah. And I was confronted with a crossroads. So this is where the story gets crazy. Paul Chinchin was my brother's mentor. Paul Chinchin has an identical twin brother who pastors a church in Arizona.
Really?
Yep. He founded the Grove in Arizona.
Wow.
So on my way out to Mississippi, my brother is the connector. He's the charmer. The dude never meets a stranger. I'm introverted. I'm closed off. He goes, hey, I set it up for you to stay at Paul Chinchin's twin brother's house on your drive out in Arizona. His name's Palmer. So I drive 7 hours from California to Arizona. It's my first stop. And Palmer had like the men's pastor there and his family, and they're having dinner.
Hold on. His twin brother's name's Palmer.
Palmer.
Paul and Palmer.
Yes.
It's like they came up with Paul and they didn't want to come up with another name. So they're like, let's put a Murr on the end of it.
Yeah. It's family names, dude.
Okay,
so you know how, And
sorry, I hijacked your story.
No, that's funny. So I'm sitting out in front of Palmer's house and I'm thinking, just push it, dude. Keep driving and go get a hotel. I reluctantly stayed, and me and Palmer get to talking, and Palmer grew up in Mississippi with his twin brother. And then would be in Africa and Mississippi. So he's like, Nate, you were at Azusa Pacific. He's like, you were working with college students. He's like, what do you want to do in ministry? And I just gave that cliche answer. I was like, man, I don't care. I'll do anything. Mm-hmm. He's like, no. Like if you're going to do anything, what would it be? And I said, well, I was working professionally with college students on campus at the university. My labor force was college students. So I was in charge of every event on campus. And I was in charge of our basketball arena, which we hosted concerts, did all that stuff. And I worked with college students to get all the jobs done. So I tell him, I'm like, man, I would want to do college ministry. And he's like, Nate, we're looking for a college pastor.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, dude, come on. He's like, no, I'm serious. Can I show you the church tomorrow? Can I give you a tour? End up giving me a tour and I love it. And he's like, hey, you go to Mississippi. He's like, but I promise you, we're going to get you back out here for an interview.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, buddy, for sure, you know? Come to Mississippi and dude, we love it. We're in New Orleans doing mission trips. We're taking senior students to the Ocoee River, going whitewater rafting. I'm eating crawfish for the first time. I have no idea what boiled peanuts are. Like, dude, my world's being rocked.
Yeah.
And he hits me up and flies me out for an interview. And I'm confronted with a crossroads again.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on this. I try to make decisions in my life where there's opportunity and where there's discomfort. And I did not want to go to Arizona. I didn't want to leave my twin brother. And I remember my twin brother was like, dude, you got to go.
Really?
And I was like, I don't want to go, dude. I'm like, look how sweet life has been these last 3 months. And he's like, you need to go. He said, you're going to get so much more opportunity there, man.
Wow.
And I made the decision to go. And I was there for 9 years. And dude, I was a Swiss Army knife. I was leading college ministry. I was teaching in main services on average once every 2 months. I was leading general adults on mission trips overseas. I was leading college students. I helped him get a Christian accredited college launched at that church campus. I was just exposed to everything. And so then that paved the way for what was next.
All right. So let's go to the first 3 months you were in Mississippi. What did you think about it when you first came?
Bro, let me start by saying, there's stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have them of Californians, right? Especially Southern Californians. Everybody's got a stereotype. So there was this stereotype. I remember in college, we would play a school in Montana. And the stereotype there was like huge corn-fed white boys.
Yeah.
Like just nasty, mean farm boys, you know? And in Mississippi from California, you got this stereotype of that, right? Like there's good old country folk here, but there also is a stereotype of racism, of white flight and all that. When I got here, all of those stereotypes were kind of shattered for me. I joke about this. Someone told me, and I think it's true, Mississippi is statistically one of the most generous states in the nation.
Forgiving. For tithing or
for
any charity?
Philanthropy.
I believe it.
They're the most generous state. They're also one of the most obese states. So they're generous and they love to eat. But I think that's deeper. There's a spirit of hospitality here. And I remember being confronted with that and thinking, dude, this is so special. My brother is so connected to everyone and everything. If he ever needed anything, there's people that would literally give him the shirt off his back. And I've experienced that too, man. Like there's something special about here. And I almost don't want to tell the rest of the country because I'm like, nah, like this is for us, you know?
Yeah.
But it is so special. And even in my church, dude, it's crazy. We've got people moving from everywhere coming to Mississippi right now.
I see it all. Like people are moving into my neighborhood from all kinds of states. And we'll have people come and check the gym out that just moved here from somewhere other state. And I'll always ask them, why'd you move here? And it's always like, cost of living, it's getting too crazy or whatever. But then you talk to people after they've been here for a while. Do you like it? I love it. What do you like about it? The people. They always say that, how friendly everybody is. And and it's almost to a T. They all say the same thing that you just said. I had this idea of what it was going to be like, and it's not like that at all. It's so much better, and they love it here. And my mom's always called it like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you never leave. And I see it with people that I went to high school with. So many people I went to high school with went to college out of state, moved away out of state to another big city. And so many have moved back, and they live right back here again, and they're raising a family here because it's just a great place to raise a family.
Yeah. That's what I was confronted with too, is you see everybody go away to school and then they come back. Mm-hmm. There's something else too, man, that I wanted to reiterate that I think is special about here that I want to celebrate. I remember being so weirded out when I would meet people here. The first summer that I was here, and still to this day, whenever you meet someone, they always introduce themselves with their first and last name. That's normal for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing up in Southern California, you never say your last name.
Really?
Never. It's weird. So, what's up, man? My name's Nathan. What's yours? Hunter. That's a normal.
Yeah.
What's up, man? What's your name? Hunter Owen.
Yeah.
And then I say, oh, my name's Nathan. And it's an awkward pause, and they're waiting for me to say my last name.
Interesting.
And I want to ask you, why do you think that is?
Just the first thought that comes to my mind is there's a long legacy of heritage and people that their family, they know their grandparents and their great grandparents, and they've all lived in the same place for generations. And so that's kind of the culture.
That is the culture. Yeah. And I think that is beautiful, and it's not celebrated enough. Even when I think about you and your family, you have a legacy that your identity belongs to. And for people on the West, it's like, it's such a melting pot. You don't see that.
Is genealogy a big thing in California?
No, it's not. It's not. And especially for Nick and I, like growing up and moving around so much, but it's huge here. And I think a lot of the states on this side of the country are that way. And so,
like my mom's traced our family back to some of our family members came over on the Mayflower, and I know who my great grandparents were. And that's fascinating.
Yep.
What did you think about me when you first met me?
Bro, I wanted to ask the same thing to you. So, and it's funny because I remember Nick was talking to me, and he's like, yeah, man, I met this guy, and I'm riding road bikes with him, and he's an attorney. And I was like, an attorney?
Yeah.
Like, dude, we didn't grow up just brushing shoulders with doctors and surgeons and attorneys. It was like, it was weird if you knew your teachers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're in a densely populated state, like in California, dude, if you want to make a doctor's appointment, it might take 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Here, if you need to be seen, you know somebody that knows somebody, and they'll get you right in. Like generally it's like that. Or you go into trust care or something and you're seen right away. So when Nick is telling me about all these people that he's meeting, obviously I'm big into fitness. He's like, dude, I met this guy named Hunter. He's like, he competes in CrossFit. And he's like, he does well, dude. He owns gyms, really successful. And so I remember my image of you is like this really cool dude that is crazy driven, successful, and is a freak athlete. That was like my persona
I appreciate
of
that.
you. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, no, I remember meeting you and being like, oh, this is Nick 2.0, this is Nick again. But I really like Nick because he was very outgoing, and he was different. He was from California, and so he was just different than a lot of people that I knew. And I was really attracted to that because I had gone to Millsaps and been around a lot of different people that I grew up with. And so I really appreciated about him. And he was into a lot of things that I was into. We had a lot more commonality than a lot of other people that I would meet. And so I just really enjoyed his energy, man. I enjoyed being around him, and he was he's always been a leader, and he was the one. He's like, let's get you out to Tomas or get you a fade haircut like in California. And people didn't have fade haircuts here then. I remember when I got my first fade, and everybody was kind of looking at me, and then 6 months later everybody had a fade. Bro, I think Nick brought it to Mississippi.
Bro,
man.
I am so glad that you say that because I that was my exact that was my perspective. And it's funny because it was like didn't people call it like a California fade or something like that?
Probably.
There was something.
I think we did say California fade.
A Cali fade. It was a Cali fade.
Well, the first time I saw it was when I went to that competition in California, and everybody had it.
Yes.
And I remember my mom and my sister were out there, and they're like, you need to get a haircut like that. Because I had this big shaggy curly hair like I'd had my whole life. And
bro, I don't want to create enemies, but there is a Southern haircut that every man
Mississippi swoop.
Bro, it's like this, and it comes down, and
it's
they
called
just
the Mississippi swoop.
Oh my gosh! Everybody that's got a Mississippi swoop, go get a Cali fade. Please.
I forgot that.
It'll change your life. If you're single, you will be married after you get that Cali fade. I promise.
A lot of guys get a fade cut now. You know,
Good.
Everybody does.
Good.
This episode is brought to you by Go Shine Express Car Wash. I have nothing but positive things to say about Go Shine. They agreed to sponsor us early before we have the numbers, and honestly, not a wise financial choice by them. What is wise is signing up for one of their monthly memberships. If you get more than one wash a month, it pays for itself. Sign up today at GoShineExpress.com, follow the QR code, or follow the link in the description. But no, and getting to meet you, it was just really cool. I think y'all were really one of my first experience of really spending a lot of time around identical twins. So that was interesting for me as well. And expecting you to be the same, but also you to be different in a lot of ways too, like you mentioned. So,
dude, it's I think people, and this might be a little too deep for us to get into, but
no, please.
But I was reading a book that says, like, literally all of us, it's human nature. You make judgments about someone within the first 10 seconds that you meet them.
Oh yeah.
And it's your lizard brain, and it's the fight or flight mechanism. But literally, I don't care if you say that you don't do this, you do it. You size people up and you're going, are they going to be an asset to my humanity? Are they a threat? Are they going to take energy from me? Are they needy? Are they a victim? You do this in 10 seconds and it's by appearance. So what I found, man, is people either love Nick and I or they can't stand us. And I think it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've even been around people, man, where like I feel bad because it's almost like we become the center of attention just because we're identical twins. And our heart is to make everyone else feel like the center of attention, dude, because we love people. And it's funny because I've just recognized that. People who don't know us will judge us and be like, these guys, like, they're full of themselves, da-da-da-da. And it's fun when we're together because people are so fascinated.
Yeah.
And people can take that and be fascinated by it, or they can just be like, screw these guys.
Nobody will ever understand that unless they either are twins or have twins.
Yep.
The amount of attention that brings and the fascination and the curiosity.
Yes.
Like everywhere we go, people are wanting to talk about it with our girls. And they don't look quite as much alike. And I've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast now as they did when they were younger. But man, when they were younger, when we first started taking them out, it was everywhere and constant.
Bro,
are those twins?
Yes.
And then they would tell you about their twins or whatever. And I can only imagine what it's like being identical twins and looking the same and being constantly around each other your whole life. I mean, you're just like immediate curiosity, attention, center of attention everywhere you go.
And dude, I remember when we were these young, cute little boys, like I'll look at pictures, the most common thing we heard is, oh my gosh, you guys are twins. Look at your eyes.
Really?
You guys, yes, always, dude. Grocery store, anywhere we went with our mom, whoever, you guys have the most beautiful eyes. Yeah. And so that was like the story of our lives.
Yeah.
Dude.
And one of my daughters has really blue eyes like you, and people always mention it.
Yeah.
And that now they're like, it looks like a White Walker, you know?
Yes,
people
bro.
say that to you.
Yes. Oh yeah. They're like, hey, dude, you're looking into my soul. Like, what's going on? Yeah, dude. This is way off tangent. Are your eyes really sensitive to the sun? Very.
Yeah.
Extremely.
See, I have really dark eyes, and like to the point where I've never even really had to wear sunglasses. I do, but I've never really realized. And then my wife was telling me, well, the sun hurts her eyes because her eyes are more blue. And my daughter, Indy, like I've noticed, like if the sun gets in her eyes, she starts to get really upset.
Yeah. And
it never even occurred to me that like the sun hurts your eyes if your eyes are that blue.
Dude, it's painful.
Really?
For real. I can attest to that. We had a campus in college that was like all whitewashed, like white stone. And I remember coming out of class and I literally would be squinting my eyes.
Yeah.
And it would hurt. It's like, it's almost like a burning sensation too.
Really?
It's wild. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good to know. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Because hers are even lighter than y'all's are, which is
dude, you really, this is another tangent. Don't always keep them, like, don't always put sunglasses on them. It's good for all of us as humans to look towards the sunrise and the sunset. I'm telling you, dude.
Oh yeah.
I've geeked out on this stuff.
There's guys that sun gaze. I've seen it.
Bro, it's true.
Yeah.
I had like an autoimmune scare and I did a deep dive on what can heal this. If we're under fake fluorescent artificial light all day, if we would just wake up in the morning and not look at blue light and would go outside and get red light from the sunrise, don't look at the sun, look toward it. Same with the sunset. I'm telling you, dude, your health would radically change. It resets your circadian rhythm. You got to remember, I got that physiology science background too. So that stuff fascinates me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Arizona. How is Arizona different than California? And then how is it different from Mississippi?
Arizona was different in that they were kind of like they wanted to be like California. Yeah.
I could see that.
And dude, when COVID happened, everybody from California left California.
Yeah.
And they came to Arizona.
Yeah.
They went to Idaho. They went to Texas. So Arizona felt very much like California, except for from May to October, which it's a long time. I'm telling you, bro, the sun and the heat is relentless. Like it would be midnight and it's still 95 degrees outside. So that was kind of tough, but Arizona was awesome because it's like gridlocked. Everything is all straight. It's clean. It's beautiful. So that my wife and I still very much love Arizona. Her family's there. We love going back. I keep seeing it. I don't know if my algorithm is just feeding it to me, but I believe it. There's 3 cities in Arizona that keep popping up as the 10 happiest places to live. Gilbert, Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Chandler, Arizona.
And where were y'all?
We were in Gilbert and Chandler.
Okay.
Like right on the border of Gilbert and Chandler.
Okay.
Gilbert, Arizona is like equivalent to like the Irvine of California.
Okay.
Irvine is like the safest city in Costa Mesa. And it's very clean, high tech, close to the beach. So Arizona's fun, man. You got good restaurants all around you. You got great hiking all around you. Hopefully you have a pool at your house because it's so hot. And what my wife and I loved is we were a 5-hour drive from San Diego. So we could get in our car for a long weekend and go to the beach.
I still have never been to San Diego, but I got family there and I've always heard it's just amazing.
The next big family vacation that you take when you want to venture out from the panhandle, you need to take the family to San Diego, dude. Yeah. And I will be offended if you don't hit me up for an itinerary.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, tell me about meeting your wife.
Oh my gosh, dude. So the church that hired me in Arizona, I'm the college pastor, and there's this girl who's a senior in college, and it's her home church. So when I got hired, it was like September. So she would come back for all the holiday services and lead worship. And I remember when I was on my interview in the summer, she was home for the summer, and I'm like hyper aware of everything. And I remember I saw her leading worship, and I was just like, dang, like she's incredible, dude. And she's beautiful, you know? And, I got hired and I was with my 2 buddies that I ended up living with that work for the church. And I was in the back seat and they were both in the front. And I was like, yo, who's that girl that was leading worship when I was on my interview? And one of the buddies like looks back at me and gives me a side eye. And he's like, her name's Andrea. He's like, why? And I was like, I was just wondering, dude. And long story short, the church ended up hiring her to be the associate director of the worship ministry. So worship pastor, his name's Josh Havens. He is in a Christian band, really well known, called the Afters. He's phenomenal. He's one of my best friends. Andrea worked with him and under him, and he traveled a lot because his band was on tour. So Dre was trained up. I call my wife Dre. Everybody knows her by Dre. So Dre would lead worship when he was gone, and she led the team. We ended up hitting it off, and she actually, dude, I had a high guard. There was a season of my life where I was confronted with the reality of like how easy it is to like slip into sin and mess up. And I was like high calling. I was like, I need boundaries because I've seen how that easily can just happen to anyone. And I was like, I'm not doing any one-on-one
Did
things.
you see that firsthand with somebody or what?
Myself, dude.
Oh, okay.
I ended up, I would say for like a year and a half, ended up being in like a dysfunctional relationship with someone that I like never thought that I would be in a relationship with. And I saw how quickly that could happen. And so that's a whole nother story, dude. But it taught me, if you don't have boundaries and exercise wisdom, just because you haven't pulled the trigger doesn't mean that you don't have the potential to do so. And so I'm full-time ministry. I was like, Dre, you want me to go paddleboarding with you? I'm like, man, it sounds corny, dude. But I was like, I don't do anything with girls one-on-one because I know what that's going to lead to.
Gotta have a chaperone.
Yeah, bro. And I ended up going with her paddleboarding, and the rest is history, dude. We hit it off. We start dating. I had to go tell my pastor because we're working at the church, dude. And I'm like, I'm not going to risk this. And I remember I went into his office. I was like, Palmer, Andrea and I wanted you to know that we're going to start dating. And he goes, Nate, you know what that means? I said, no, I don't. He said, I'm going to have to ask you to move on. Like you're going to, wow. And he was joking, bro. He was totally joking. This isn't no Southern Baptist church, brother.
He had you going.
He had me going. This ain't no Presbyterian Southern Baptist church for you. He said, Nate, I'm joking. He said, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I would tell my sons. He said, you honor her. He said, you lead and you fight for her and you do this right. And I said, you got it, man. We dated for 3 years on staff at the church, dude. Ended up getting married, and we worked together as a married couple for 2 years at the church. And we both are very hard-headed, and there would be fireworks and people around us would be like, yo, are you guys okay? We're like, yeah, this is just how we talk to each other, you know? Yeah, dude.
Were you worried when you told him that he was going to ask you to move on?
There was a part of me that was, yeah, totally. And I was like, I don't know if she's worth it, bro, for my job. But it was great, dude. It was amazing. She actually helped me out in my college ministry, but this sounds weird to say because we're talking about church. She was more of an asset to that church than I was.
Wow.
Yeah. She's that gifted, dude. And anybody that comes.
In what way?
Her calling and her skill set, her ability to sing and her ability to lead people in worship. So like, and you've obviously been in church for a long time. When she leads, bro, she takes you somewhere else. And I know a lot of people probably say this about their wives who can sing. She's different, dude. She's different. And we made the decision to come here because it's like you know how, I mean, does your wife work? She works, right?
She has a booth that she's
got
does.
A booth.
Yeah.
Well, so we sacrificed. We both worked, but now I work and she's staying home while our kids are young. And it's hard. Like, yeah, it's a struggle.
Yeah, Claire's mostly staying with the girls.
Yeah, dude. And so she serves at our church, but I'm like, God, I can't wait for the day that she gets to really serve regularly because she's got such a gift.
So is that the plan, to kind of get back into it once the kids get older?
Yeah, dude. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Well, when did y'all have kids?
We had
Arizona?
Yeah. My son was born in Arizona, and then he was 3 months when we moved here, dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was that like moving with a 3-month-old?
Oh, it was insane, dude.
I bet.
That's what I'm saying. We had a kid. Mom passed, career change. Dude, we have gone through so much that has only made us stronger.
So let's go to the decision to leave Arizona. How did that come about?
Dude, I will tell people now that year was one of the hardest years of my life because you're confronted with the reality that it sounds weird to say this, and I don't mean it of like I got to take advantage of stuff, but I was like the golden boy in that church. I was a high capacity leader. I had a lot of responsibility. My lead pastor trusted me with a lot. His son was on staff who was my age. So it's kind of like the writing's on the wall, right? Like, I'm not going to take this church over one day. And I told him, I said, hey, I want to plant a church. I want to plant another Grove in San Diego.
Did they have any other locations?
They didn't, but he said that it was a dream of his.
Okay.
And dude, I was talking with his twin brother before he passed about planting a church in San Diego. I still have the text message to this day. It was like 4 months before he passed.
I didn't know that he had passed.
Yeah. He said, Nate, let's talk to Palmer about what it's going to take to get you and Andrea planted in San Diego.
Wow.
And he ended up passing like 4 months later. And I think I've never talked to my previous pastor about this. His dad started the colleges in Africa. So he wanted to start a Christian college in Arizona. It was always his dream. So he told me, he's like, Nate, we're not ready to plant a church, but you can help me launch this college. I was like, bro, I came from working at a college. I was like, I want to give my life to building the church. And it wasn't like any offense towards him, but I gave a year of my life to working at the church and the college with him. I learned a lot, but I also learned that I didn't want to be in the college setting. And so the writing was on the wall that I needed to start looking elsewhere. And it was tough, man. He actually caught wind that I was looking elsewhere, and he's probably not going to see this podcast, so it's fine, but he essentially fired me.
Wow.
He told me, he's like, hey, Nate, it was like March. He's like, I'm going to give you till July. I heard that you've been looking. And I was like, in my head, I was like, bro, do you realize what you're doing right now? Like your worship leader's gone too. Like, my wife was working at the church as well. And the next day he called me back in his office and he's like, Nate, I was tormented all night. He's like, that doesn't feel right. Like, I do love you like a son. He's like, let's just figure this out. And if God is calling you elsewhere, you pursue that however he's calling you.
Wow.
He went back, dude, on his decision, which that is a huge mark of humility.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a good Christian man.
Yes,
it probably hurt his pride and his ego, and he realized what was going on. And,
yes.
And the Holy Spirit got a hold of him.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And it was probably elders in his ear.
You think?
Yeah, dude, for sure.
You know how churches work.
I know, dude. And we could talk about that.
Yeah,
man.
I want to.
We should.
Yeah.
We should. Yeah. So long story short, it was another year where I realized that my influence was, the church loved me. Like they did not want to see me go. But I applied out and there were 5 other churches that I was interviewing with. It was between Vertical, which I knew Ben Derrick from a hangar coaching weekend. My brother knew him. Mm-hmm. And I had heard of Vertical. And dude, it was like, I think it was the year Ben announced his transition. And this is no knock on Ben. I remember I popped into Vertical because I had this thought of, what if one day, and this was before I even thought to apply or anything. And I walked into Vertical and my heart was like, it felt for the church. Mm. It was one service. The room was like a quarter of the way full.
Was this after COVID?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It was just after COVID. Mm-hmm. It was just after COVID.
Yeah.
And I remember having a heavy heart and I'm like, like this is sad.
Yeah.
It felt like the church was dying, dude. Mm-hmm. So now it was 2 years later that I applied. It was between a church on the 30A.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude. And Vertical. And
I don't know how I could have turned down 30A, bro.
That's so funny.
I mean, San Diego, 30A, or Madison. I mean,
so, bro, thank God I had the wisdom to go, well, Dre's going to be home with our kids. We're going to be poor as dirt on the 30A. We're not going to be living like everybody else out here on the 30A.
You're going to be commuting an hour away.
Yeah, dude. And I don't know if you've been an hour away from the 30A. It's not nice.
Yeah. My sister worked down there at a Lululemon and at one of the Lululemons on 30A, but she had to stay like 45 minutes away and drive there.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're confronted with all these like vacationers and people on like tourists. I was like, Dre, we don't want to do that. And the church was amazing, dude. I still love that church.
Where is it?
It's I'll shout them out all day. Yeah. It's called Good News Church. If anybody goes to vacation on the 30A, go attend Good News Church. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal church. Mm-hmm. The pastor's name is Brad Good is his name. Phenomenal church. So we're weighing these opportunities and I fell in love with the culture of Vertical. And then having my twin brother here, I was like, God, only you could write this story. Mm-hmm. So I made the decision to come to Mississippi.
That's awesome. And so then you go through the whirlwind of moving and all that other stuff that happened. And what was that first year transitioning into the head pastor role?
Bro, this is one of your end questions that I prepared for. You said what was the hardest season of your life and what did you learn from it? The 2 hardest seasons of my life. I was 17 when my mom had her stroke. That was the most difficult season of my life. And then the other one was my first year at Vertical Church. It was awful, dude. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And I'm only 4 years removed from that season. So there's some things that obviously like I'm going to protect and not talk about openly. But dude, when I first got here, there was 12 people on staff and the church was like 150 people. That's
not sustainable.
That's bloated, bro. And there were personalities that I loved on staff and I felt the culture. It embodied that perspective that I had of, I want everyone to feel welcome at church, regardless of what your past is. But when I got here, man, you don't know what you don't know. And there's a book called Your First 90 Days that talks about like when you take over a business or an organization, what you should do. One of my mentors said, if you come in and change everything right away, you're probably the wrong guy.
Wow.
But he said, if you come in and change nothing over a long period of time, you're probably the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So I came in and I just tried to learn and observe. And that first year, dude, I was confronted with, we're overstaffed and there are some very toxic people on this staff that need to go. And it was the first time in my life where I was confronted with being lied about, being gossiped about, being slandered about. I had an email, dude. I can't wait for the day that I get to share this email. I seriously can't. I'm gonna share it.
Yeah.
And I'll
what
keep
are you waiting on?
My board probably going, Nate, you probably shouldn't do that. I want to expose these people so bad, bro. An email came in because of an Instagram comment that these church people saw. And they said, Nate is a womanizer. Like he's disrespectful to his wife, like stuff that could get a pastor fired, bro. So there had to be like an investigation in my first year. And it was someone on staff who was friends with these people that were gossiping about me and probably just it was such a silly comment, dude, which I learned another lesson that you, when you're in ministry, you're in the fishbowl.
Oh, yeah.
And so people see an Instagram comment and they're going to judge you because of it, you know? So I would lie awake at night, dude, and I've got staff members that are slandering me, gossiping about me, lying about me. And I was confronted with, how do I get them healthier, or how do I help them move on? And I was loved at my previous church, and here I'm like, Dre, we're about to move back in with your parents because this place is toxic, dude. And so that was my first year.
How'd you get through it?
A lot of grit, a lot of perseverance. And I fell back on the reality. I was like, God, I love this church so much, the culture of it. And I said, Lord, if you can use me in any way to bring some stability and growth here, I was like, do it. What
did you love so much about the culture?
It embodied this posture and this perspective of, you don't have to pretend like you've got it all together. And you're also not going to embody this posture and perspective of, well, that's just the way that I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not phony Christianity. It's also Christianity that's committed to growing. And I loved it, man. I loved it. It's hard to have a multi-ethnic church in Mississippi. It just is. I feel like we've got a multi-ethnic and a multi-generational church at Vertical, and that feels like home to me because I grew up in Southern California, a melting pot. And so I love it, man. I love it.
So how did you put together a plan to kind of change or impact the church in the way that you wanted to?
I think the first year was just holding on, holding on to myself, not allowing. There was this saying that we say all the time: don't pick up the enemy's weapons, because you'll become just like them. So a lot of times when we're hurt, we want to pick up a weapon and hurt back. So that first year was like not letting my spirit and soul be deformed by the dysfunction around me. And then year one, it was like God gave me a word. It was prune. You have to prune in order to grow. And dude, I had 4 people leave my board. That's a whole nother conversation. There were people.
How many people are on the board?
Technically, there is 9 people total.
Okay.
9 total.
So 4 out of 9 left.
Yeah.
Wow.
And people who should have never have been on a board, a church board, mind you. Like they didn't have the character or the biblical qualifications to be on that board. So 4 people on my board left, and then we went from a staff team of 12 to 8, 7 at one point. And that was good. And God was reminding me, we're pruning. So then year 2, I feel like I've got some stability. Year 3, I finally feel like I've crafted what is our vision, what is our mission, and now we're going after it. So we're in year 4, dude, and we went from 150 people on a Sunday, 1 service, and now we're at like a total of 600 people on a weekend in 2 services.
Awesome.
And I told our staff team, I'm like, our job is to grow as leaders and to grow our volunteers, and let's reach more people. Like let's radically pursue those who are far from Jesus and who are not in a church.
So you mentioned the vision. What vision did you come on?
Dude, there was no vision, man. It was like you couldn't articulate it.
Well, I mean, what did you come up with?
I came up with, it's something that we've coined as our transformation loop. Like we believe discipleship follows a clear pathway. And I'm going to break it down for you. So our vision as Vertical Church, we exist to help people encounter God, follow Jesus, experience freedom, and make an impact. Now, I can break that down.
Yes.
We exist to help people encounter God. We believe that everybody longs for an encounter with God. And we've all had it. And we should, as believers, have it every day. When you open up God's word, you have an opportunity to encounter God. We have the gift of the Holy Spirit that is with us. And that Holy Spirit is the way that we encounter God. We're walking encounters. So we believe that one encounter can change everything about someone's life. That's our tagline, right? So because of that, we exist to remove every barrier in people's lives that hinder them from encountering God. How do we do that? Predominantly on a Sunday morning. Right? So we want to get as many people as we can in our community to come encounter God on a Sunday morning. After you encounter God, you see this all throughout the scriptures. You should be confronted with a decision after you encounter God. It should come through conviction. The Holy Spirit convicts us. The Holy Spirit leads us and guides us in all truth and righteousness. This is all God's word. So after you encounter God, and for people for their first time, what's the decision that they need to make?
Come to God.
Come to God.
Accept him. Yep.
Yes. And what does that look like? It's the second step in our transformation loop. We exist to help people encounter God. After they encounter God, we want them to make a decision to follow Jesus. Dude, I always want to break this down in a way that's not churchy. What does it look like to follow Jesus? It looks like being in relationship with other people. It looks like, and I hate the church words, right? But it looks like confessing your sin to one another, because the Bible tells us in James, if you want to be healed, confess your sins to one another. If you want to be forgiven, confess your sin to God. Isn't that crazy? If you want to be forgiven, God, I confess I'm a sinner and I need your grace. You're forgiven. But his word tells us that if you want to experience healing or freedom, you got to confess your sin to one another.
Wow.
So what does it look like to follow Jesus? After an encounter, you follow Jesus when you're doing life in community. And after that, when you're following Jesus, you should be experiencing freedom.
Wow.
So what does freedom look like? You're free from sin. You're free to serve. You're free to give. You're free to grow. Feel me?
That's awesome, man.
And then once you live that, now you're making the kind of impact that God has always intended you to make.
So how does that show up in a tactical way with the church?
In a tactical way, so as ministry leaders and as department leaders, all of us have to break down, dude, this is where we can geek out, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
You have to break down your systems that push vision forward. So how does the worship pastor help people encounter God, follow Jesus, and experience freedom? Well, it's very practical things like they use a software called Planning Center. And well, first you have to recruit and develop a team, right? Like their job is to recruit leaders and recruit like-minded people with similar interests. And then they develop their team and they schedule rehearsals, and it's life on life. So for groups, it's finding people who have leadership potential, like our group leaders. They're looking for people who have a natural leadership capacity. And then it's inviting them into that, training them, and then implementing our system. We have a process called Rooted, where we take everybody through a 10-week discipleship journey.
So these are members that you're taking through?
Yeah. And there's stuff that Vertical has kind of like coined that I like, that I didn't change. They don't call them members, they call them partners. Okay. Which is cool, because we're partners in the co-laboring of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's not a country club, like a membership. You don't just come here to get your fix and fill and attend. You come here to partner with what God is doing.
I like that.
It's really cool, man. So everybody has to break down, we call it the rule of 5. There should be 5 things that you do all week long that push vision forward. For me, my 5 are: I cast vision, I develop our team, I preach every Sunday. And you can break all of those down into processes and systems. I intentionally meet with my key leaders in the church, my board. Those are things that are my responsibility. I have pastoral care. I walk with people through hard seasons. I do premarital counseling. I do grief counseling. There's things like that I do. And that pushes vision forward.
How did you come up with the structure?
I got intentional coaching. There were things that my heart beat for naturally, but I didn't have. I'm a big vision guy and I'm very intuitive. I'm not a big systems guy. I've learned that I love systems, but I'm not the guy that's going to pioneer systems, and you don't have to. They're already there. They already exist, you know? So I realized year 2, I need to intentionally step out and get coaching. And so I did that for a year. I was in a coaching cohort with pastors.
Okay. How'd you find that?
There's different programs that exist, man. And I had someone that reached out to me and they said, hey, there's a specific coaching cohort for pastors that transitioned into a church. They didn't plant it. They didn't start it. They took it over.
Interesting.
And I was like, bingo, dude.
That's
like,
what I need.
Yeah, that's exactly what I need. And honestly, man, there are legends that I was in living rooms with that were depositing all this into me.
You want to drop names?
Yeah, man. So growing up in Southern California, Newport Beach and Costa Mesa was like the pinnacle. And I always heard of a church called Mariners Church. And if you Google this church, it's one of the largest churches in the nation. And there's a founding pastor. His name's Kenton Beshore. And I heard of Mariners Church, had no idea who this guy was. Here I am 30 years later, sitting in his living room, being coached by him. And it was like a full circle moment where I left Mississippi to go to Newport Beach to sit in his living room to get coaching. And he's a guy who is retired and he has no time to waste. So he's a no BS guy. So he's like, Nate, this is what you need to do. This is the vision you need to create. He's like, this is who you need to fire. And I'm like, bro, it's not that easy, you know? He's like, no, this is what you need to do. You need to go do this. And so he helped me coin that transformation loop.
Wow.
And what I did was I took it and I said, how does this make sense for our context? Their verbiage is different than us, right? The mission of every church should not be different. It's to reach the lost. It's to help people encounter God. That's all of our mission, dude. And he also taught me your vision should always be changing based off of the season that God has you in. So yeah, dude, I learned so many good leadership principles from that coaching.
You mentioned deacons earlier. What did you want to talk about with that?
Oh my gosh, dude. Through my brother's experience and my own, you see that what can make or break a church is the board, the elders, the deacons, and interchangeable words, right? At a lot of these older churches, it's people that have been in positions of power for far too long, and they have too much power and too much authority. And I do think there needs to be good checks and balances. I think Vertical Church has great checks and balances. Like I don't, this is kind of crazy, but I don't get to nominate who's on my board. And they implemented that as a checks and balance so that I don't put a bunch of yes men around me. But I think that to serve on a church board is just as high of a calling as being a pastor. It really is. You're an overseer. And I think the word overseer is interchangeable with pastor and shepherd. And so my brother's got some horror stories that I've heard over the years of just controlling manipulative board members and elders, man. And so, yeah, I just think that we have to be careful.
Do you think there should be term limits?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there should be term limits for sure. And I think that there should be a certain amount of time that you would have to sit off. And I think that you could come back on if you're voted or nominated, you know?
I've thought about that with politics a lot. And, politicians initially were meant to be regular citizens who stepped into politics for a while and then left and go back out. And now they're just career politicians that have been there for 40, 50 years.
Bro.
And I think if there were term limits, it would solve a lot of the problems that we have.
Nothing boils my blood more, dude. That's what you're about to bring the conspiracy theorist out.
All right, let's hear it.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's evident, bro. There's principalities and powers that exist. And the further you dive back into the history of our nation, it's like, yeah, we were founded on Christian principles, but also this is what it frustrates me. What is a conspiracy except a cover up for the truth? That's what a conspiracy is, dude, when you boil it down. You don't think that there are people in positions of power that are trying to manipulate and outright lie to maintain that power. Absolutely, dude. Yeah. There was a quote, dude, you're so well read. And I don't even remember who this came from. You probably know, but they said that every American president is like the conductor on the train and they don't get to decide where the train goes.
Really?
Yeah. They just get on the train and they just make sure that
I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard that? And dude, I'm like, that is so true. It's so true. You see that and you're going to get me going, man, but I think that the enemy wants Republicans and Democrats to be divided. And we don't realize that. And I'm not saying, please hear me. I am not saying President Donald Trump is the enemy or President Biden was the enemy. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the principalities and powers behind those people that we will never see are the problem.
I think when you start to look at life in the world as spiritual warfare, it starts to make things make a lot more sense. It's like, how can people think this? Do they really think do they really believe this, or are they just saying that? And why are they making these decisions? And then if you start to think, okay, there's an enemy that's out to kill, steal, and destroy, then it starts to make sense. Oh, okay, all right, I'm starting to track what's going on here.
Yes. And what I tell people is don't obsess over the things that you can't control. I pray that you're awakened and enlightened to that, but what that should do is make you love your family even more so.
Absolutely.
It should make you be more present with the controllables in your life.
And not let it get you so spun up that it's constantly on your mind all the time, because it's a battle and you have to understand that for a lot of us there's not much at all we can do. So why do we need to dwell on it day to day?
Bro, you are firing me up, because then now my job is to get even business leaders and entrepreneurs to realize this and go, what is the most important cause you can give your life to? Waking people up to the reality of the gospel. And you can do that as a business owner. You can do that as an attorney. You can do that in any sphere of influence that God has given you.
What do you think about, it seems like there's a rise in Christianity in this country recently. What do you think about that?
Oh, bro, not to get all weird and end times on us, but I was at a conference 2 weeks ago and they said, I do believe once every tribe and tongue has had an opportunity to hear the gospel, I think that means that we're near the end. And they said that the Bible is like 15 translations away from being translated into every.
Really?
Yes. And 5 years ago, it was like 1,000 translations. So what I think now more than ever, obviously we're closer than we've ever been. But when you wake up to the reality that Josh Howerton was just
I was going to ask you what you thought about
Sean Ryan's podcast. And I haven't had an opportunity to listen to it yet.
I just finished it today.
You did.
I really enjoyed the last hour because they really kind of started talking about their own lives and what they got going on. And they both have been incredibly successful. And Sean Ryan was talking about he's had to increase his security and really frustrated with how it's impacted his family, and there are people putting stuff out in public that shouldn't be. And then Josh Howerton was talking about how some of his sermons have been publicly attacked and people have been publicly accusing him of all these things and how it used to bother him and how he's gotten past it. But it's just fascinating to me to see the rise of Christianity here in the last year and a half. What do you attribute that to in the country?
Yeah, I think that I truly do think, regardless of what people believe about Charlie Kirk, I think that was where it was a defining moment in our nation. And there were people, and I hate saying conservative or liberal. I just hate putting people in categories, man. But there were people that were kind of passive about their faith, and they saw what happened to a man of faith. And I know some people will say opposite of Charlie Kirk, but and they said this was a man who believed in Jesus, and look what happened to him. And so I think that has a tide has risen in our nation. But then you have these pastors who have been graced and gifted for a far reach. And I just think that we're in a season where now more than ever, the curtain is being pulled back on the evil in our world. And people are looking to these pastors for wisdom, direction, guidance, and we're seeing that.
It's crazy to see. Sean Ryan is publicly professed Christian, and he's the #2 podcast in the world right now. And COVID 2020, 2021, it was like the complete opposite. And I remember having conversations with people and saying, I think the pendulum has swung too far this way. It's going to go back the other way. And I think you hit the nail on the head. People are starting to realize, like, all right, this is crazy. And they've talked about this publicly. They're like, we went way too far this direction. We've kind of reached the end of this rope and see where that's going to lead. And so the people in the middle are starting to say, well, let me try this other thing. And I think that's Josh Howerton has said, especially with young men, they're really being drawn to the faith. Are you following any of these, pastors that are really blowing up on social media, on YouTube and everything? Do you follow any of those guys?
Yeah, I do follow them. And there's one thought that I had too before I want to move on to capture. I think truly, man, if you've traveled and if you've seen the world, like I've also been to Thailand and I've seen sex trafficking and stuff. When you're confronted, like we were with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, when you're confronted with evil and you see it in the world, it wakes you up to the reality that there has to be something else that can fight against this.
Yes.
And I tell people all the time, man, if the veil was completely removed from our eyes and we actually saw how evil this world actually was, we wouldn't be able to leave our house. And so I think God's grace is there, but also we do need to wake up to fight against it. We have to. And so I think that's what's attributed to the rise of these podcasts. I follow a lot of these guys, and man, I'm going to be radically honest and just kind of air my dirty laundry. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I care about protecting myself and those that I love. That's my core motivation. It's safety. It's being in control. I see a lot of my friends that are 3s on the Enneagram, and they're very performance driven. Performance as in success, as in looking good. And dude, and this is me being honest, nothing triggers me more than seeing a 3 Enneagram pastor.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a 3.
You're a 3.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm sorry about it, dude. No,
it's good.
But this is good because we can unpack it.
Yeah.
When, and it doesn't mean that there can't be great ones, but if you think about it, our personality unchecked not held accountable, it can be super dangerous.
And unhealthy three is very superficial and very projecting and not willing to go deep.
Bro, and that's what triggers me. An unhealthy 8 is very commanding and controlling. And they put yes men and women all around them. So I fight against that. And here's the reason, dude. And Nick talked about this. He's like, if it's not real, I don't want it. Bro, I saw how phony church was. I saw like these fake Christians growing up. And I'm like, I was talking to a guy the other day, dude, and he's like, I should have gone into ministry, but I decided I'd rather work with people that aren't trying to hide the fact that they're an a-hole in the public space, you know? Yeah. He's like, in the church world, we're deceptive about that, you know? And I was like laughing. I'm like, yeah, dude, I totally get you. But when an unhealthy person gets a platform, you see it's just feeding their ego and it's superficial. And you can tell they love the spotlight and they love the platform. That can happen to anybody that's given that spotlight and that platform. So that's something that we have to actively fight against. And I was in a lot of therapy, in a lot of counseling. And I remember, this is what I loved about Vertical. Vertical needed a recommendation from a licensed therapist as part of your job application. And I remember I reached out to my therapist, who she's renowned in Arizona, dude. She's in her 60s, and I'm kid you not, the way that she can create holy ground so that you can unravel and just show all your stuff, it was wild. She said, Nate, I have never seen more narcissistic tendencies than I have with lead pastors. And she said, I'm not just telling you this, you're different.
Wow. She
said, you're not afraid of the work. And she said, don't ever lose that about you. I know how easily I could leave that reality. And so I'm going to a 5-day intensive this month, actually. I can't believe it's coming up. I'm going to a 5-day intensive counseling retreat. It's with Onsite. It's kind of a renowned place. And dude, I'm terrified. I'm not going to have any communication with anyone for 5 days. And I'm doing some deep work. And someone was like, why? And I was like, I'm being proactive.
Wow.
And just, I don't want to be the pastor that starts to love the influence that I have, loves the platform that I have, or has a moral failure and sacrifices my family. And there's nothing in my life that I would walk that road right now, but just because I haven't pulled the trigger doesn't mean I don't have the potential to do so. And so I don't want to be a narcissist. I don't want to covet the platform. I don't want to live out all of those realities. And you see that with a lot of these pastors, man.
Yeah. All right. So I had 2 thoughts.
Yep.
Number one, back to one more final thought on the rise of Christianity. Josh Howerton and Sean Ryan talked about that. And Josh Howerton mentioned that the devil has a history of overplaying his hand. And he feels like he had a lot of ground and he overplayed it in America, and it swung it too far direction. And so that's what's kind of caused the opposite thing. But I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this, because they kind of talk about all this stuff and the struggles of fame and getting a platform and influence and all this type of stuff. But then I want to talk about the Enneagram into the 3, and maybe that'll help your thoughts of 3s as pastor, and my experience as a 3 of my life as surface level relationships.
Yes.
For my entire life.
Yes.
Up until the last 10 years or so, never knowing how to go deep with anybody. It's always about appearance and constant worried about what other people are thinking about me. If somebody's talking bad about me, it just crushes me, and worried about just appearance is everything, and wanting to look good and achieve so other people that I know will think, look at what you've done. And it's only through, and I'm not saying I'm healthy or, arrived or by any means, but by the work that I've done over these past years is made me more, I have deep relationships with people, and I'm willing to talk about deep things with guys and my wife and just important relationships, and being able to go deep with people and be known by other people and not putting on this false facade. And then it's started to allow me to be not free, but be better about worrying about what other people think.
Yes.
And a lot of that goes into this podcast. It's like, you're going to put your stuff out there on social media. There's going to be negatives, and you're going to want to couch what you say. Maybe not say exactly what you think if you're worried about how it's going to be perceived by other people. And if I want God to use me in my life, I have to say what I mean, and really want to put the truth out there and not be afraid of how it's received. And so that's kind of been my growth as a 3. And I have, and it's going to be a battle for the rest of my life. Absolutely. But that's what I've seen. And that does make sense that 3s in that role, if they're in an unhealthy position, they would not be willing to do those types of things.
Yeah. And I want to ask you too, man, because you were alluding to it. You said that like criticism would crush you.
Yeah.
And 3s are very driven by success, by performance, by having it all together.
Yeah.
So what is the core fear within that?
The core fear?
Core fear.
For me?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, like my biggest fear for most of my life would be to not achieve what I wanted to achieve, not to succeed to the level that I wanted to succeed.
Yes. So let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
What does that achievement and success tell you? Like in a good way, like when you do
achieve. Good enough. Yeah.
So what is your core fear?
That I'm not good enough.
That you're not enough.
Wow. Yeah.
That you're not enough.
And that's been my journey with God and with Christ these last few years, is like, I am not the athlete. I'm not the business owner. I'm not this, that, and the other. I'm enough in God, and He sees me.
And dude, I think Nick does a good job of doing this, and it's one of the reasons why you probably gravitated towards him. And when you have people in your life that remind you that you are enough, regardless of whatever competition you won or whatever business you've built,
right?
It allows you to be yourself and not operate from your core fear. So then you can operate from your core strength.
Wow.
You got me?
Yeah.
And so my core fear is I want to be safe. And I want the people I love to be safe. And if they're not, it was my childhood.
Yeah.
My job, I'm the younger brother, but I will protect myself and my brother, even if that means putting my own life at risk. And I've carried that with me my whole life. So your core fear with the podcast is, man, like people are going to say stuff and it's going to remind me that I'm not enough. My core fear, and I think God graces us for platforms. My core fear is I'm going to start putting my heart out there and people are going to come after me.
Wow.
And I don't even want to put that burden on myself or my family or my loved ones. You get what I'm saying? And so there is an aspect of me of I can't operate from my core fear. So I do need to put it out there. I do need to trust God and what He's calling me to. You know what I mean?
So how do you work through that?
You work through it. I think this is why, dude, there's people in the church that think that the Enneagram is demonic.
Really?
And that's a whole nother conversation, dude.
At your church or just in general?
In general. And in my church too.
Huh.
Yeah, we could. It's the origination of it. There's the founder said that he did auto writing and he was like inspired by a transcendent source and came up with it, right? And that I think that everything can be a tool, right? And we have to exercise wisdom. The reason why I love the Enneagram is because if you don't know your core fear, then you don't know why you're doing the things that you're doing, especially if they're hurtful, right? And so once you know your core fear, that I long to be safe. Hypervigilance, Sam Ryden has actually talked to my brother and I about this. Growing up in a chaotic environment can make you hypervigilant.
Yeah.
It means that you don't trust people. So I have to remind myself, hey, people are trustworthy. And you believe them until they absolutely give you a reason not to, you know? And you have to set up parameters and boundaries in your life. Sean Ryan, he says that he doesn't even go on social media, bro.
Yeah, that's what he literally was talking about that. He said he got it off completely, so he just doesn't even read it anymore.
Exactly. So it's personal to you, how you work through your core fear. I know my brother, like sevens, they want to avoid pain at all costs. So you can't run from every hard thing in your life, you know? You have to know that to be able to work through it for sure.
If I hadn't done the work in the last couple of years, this podcast would look a lot different than it does now.
Yep.
You know, and so, I think everything happens for a reason, and the timing makes sense.
Yes.
In hindsight,
it always does.
Yeah.
And to tie up the bow on that, I thank you for saying that, because I try not to criticize anyone because I think it's so easy to be a critic. Even my friends that are Enneagram 3 pastors, it helps me when I go, man, when they're operating in that place, it's because they truly believe they're not enough. So then I can have grace and empathy for them.
Yeah, the Enneagram helped me understand people in a deeper way than I was ever able to. When you understand all that type of stuff, I went a deep dive for a few years on it, and I probably need to do a refresher on it.
Oh yeah,
because it's so good. All right, well, let's go over the 5 questions before we wrap it up.
Yep.
What are 2 books that you loved and or had a big impact on you?
Man, I'm a big reader. Definitely not as big of a reader as you, but there's like 10 books that I could give that have impacted my life.
Give me as many as you want.
Well, I processed this and prayed about it. There's two recently. One foundational. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. Have you heard of that book? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, dude, it's phenomenal. It was revolutionary for me. So I want to share a quick story about the book. The author shares this story, and it gives the whole premise for the entire book. So Leadership and Self-Deception, I cannot recommend it enough. I read it in my early 20s, and it has set me up for leadership success that I've had in my life. The author shares a story about a doctor in Austria, in Vienna. And this is in the mid 1800s. Mm-hmm. So not a ton of medical advancement, but there has been a lot, obviously. Germ theory's not around. Louis Pasteur, who pasteurized everything and killed germs, that's not a thing. So his name, it sounds funny, and good luck for the captions trying to capture this, but Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis. So he's Hungarian in Austria. He's a physician, and what happened in the mid 1800s is all of these women and moms who were giving birth were dying at horrific rates. And this doctor was trying to figure out why. And they were attributing the deaths to circumstances outside of them. Maybe the air quality's bad. Maybe we need better ventilation. Maybe it's the patient, like we need to do bloodletting and put leeches on them. They're doing all this awful treatment, man. And this is an excerpt from the book. This is a true story. It says that the women would rather give birth in the street than be admitted to the hospital.
Wow.
Because the death rate was so high. So this doctor started to humble himself and say, what are we doing as physicians that could be causing this problem? And he realized that these doctors were going and operating on dead bodies. And then they were coming straight into the room with these moms and operating on them. And he said, what if we start washing our hands in this chemical lime solution? Death rates were gone.
Wow.
He realized, and the doctors, guess what? They didn't want to humble themselves to believe that they were part of the problem. And so the whole premise for this book, Leadership and Self-Deception, if you as a leader don't realize that your leadership can contribute to some of the problems you're facing in your life, then you will always be causing damage. And so that book, revolutionary, man. It says, whenever we all in our heart have this core inclination to do something. Think about you and your wife, right? Like your girls are in the other room, you put them to bed, and you hear one of them cry. What's the first thought in your head?
I got to go check on her.
Oh, that's a good man.
Yeah.
Okay, so now imagine you stay in your bed for a little bit longer. Now what's the second thought in your head?
I hope she stops crying.
I hope she stops crying. Okay. Yeah. And now she doesn't. And now what's the third thought in your head?
There's something really wrong.
Okay. And so you're a good man and a good husband. Most men would go like, is my wife hearing this?
Yeah.
I can't be the only one that heard that cry.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Well, I'm the one that goes checks on him.
So. See, you're a good man though, dude. So let's make up a scenario. Okay. And couples do this, and it's a good example. When you hear the baby cry, your first inclination is, I should go check on them. And if you wait, most people betray their initial feeling, and they go, clearly she can hear that too. Yeah. I just checked on them last. It's their turn.
Yeah.
And then you go in this narrative of, I'm always the one that checks on the kids.
Yeah.
They never, and so they say, once you betray yourself, you put yourself in a box. And then you start to objectify and degrade the other person, and you maximize their faults. And now you are living life in the box. Wow. So you have to get outside of the box by acting on your first initial feeling.
Wow.
And sacrificing in that moment.
Huh.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
And so you take that leadership principle with you wherever you go.
Yeah.
That one. And then you need to read this one, man, especially with your twin girls. It's called Wanting.
Okay.
The Power of Mimetic Desire in Everyday Life. I read this book 3 years ago, maybe, 3 years ago, and it radically changed my life. The Power of Mimetic Desire. It's this theory of mimesis is what it's called. And mimesis, think like a mime.
Yeah.
People watch mimes. So in this book, he says that what governs our life is our wanting or our desire. And this was revolutionary, man. He said, we don't naturally know what we want. We learn what to want by watching other people.
I believe that.
Right? So the most powerful thing that we have in our life are models. You don't do what your parents taught you. You do what they showed you. We watch people and we learn.
I mean, I see that in the gym all the time. The kids that just come and watch their parents, then they want to work out just because that's what their parents do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all they know.
Yeah.
So that really opened up my thinking of like, why am I wanting what I want? Like, I don't need a bigger house.
Because everybody else around here wants it.
Yes, bro. Exactly. So
it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. And it says you have a model and then you have a desire. You want to be like that model. And then the third thing that he talks about is rivalry. So then you end up having a rivalry with these people because you're jealous, because you want what they have. It's really powerful stuff. Wow. So those 2 books, man.
What you mentioned, what other ones were you considering mentioning? Just, you don't have to go in detail. Just
foundational for me, I think as a Christian, John Maxwell wrote a book that not many people know about. It's called The 21 Most Powerful Minutes in a Leader's Day. That book single-handedly, as a young seminary student, that book taught me more about the Bible than any Bible class I ever took.
Wow.
So what he did was he was a pastor for many years before he was a leadership expert. He took leadership principles from the Bible and he made a beautiful devotional. And honestly, I read it every year.
I bet if you can lead a church, you can lead pretty much any business. Huh?
Bro, me and your brother talk about this all the time. We kind of argue about it in a good way. And
that makes sense.
He said he
loves to argue.
He's like, don't act like the church is so different than a business. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, bro. The church is definitely different than a business. But what he said was the best businesses should have biblical principles. Yeah. And I said, I completely agree. I completely agree.
Awesome. What's a piece of advice that really stuck with you?
Man, I'm always looking for good advice and sound advice. And this was something that I heard at a conference just a couple of weeks ago that kind of like rocked me. And it was a quote. And the quote was, you can either grow or become a critic of those who do. You can either grow or become a critic of those who do.
Wow.
Those are our only 2 options. And think about it, dude. It's so easy to criticize people who are doing more than you or what you wish you were doing. So, and I think that all of us were created to grow. There's some scientific principle that if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I think that every believer is growing into something beautiful that is going to be in full bloom when we die. And I don't think death is the end, obviously.
Have you ever heard somebody talk about how you only see old people either incredibly the nicest person ever or the meanest person ever, and how our entire lives we're becoming something, and then that's just amplified. The older we get, the more we come of that. That's why old people are either one or the other, and there's not really much in between.
I agree. Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. C.S. Lewis wrote about it. He said, there is something inside of all of us that is growing up, and if left unchecked and nipped in the bud, it will look a lot like hell.
Oh yeah.
And he said, there's also something that could be growing up inside all of us that can look a lot like heaven. And he says, heaven should be a place that when we get to, we say, this is the place that I longed for my entire life. And it feels familiar.
In my life, if my life had grown in the way that I want it to, unchecked by God, when closing doors and change of path, I would be a completely different person, and not in a good way.
I know, dude. It's terrifying.
It is.
It's terrifying, bro. For all of us, dude.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about this earlier. Talk about the other season. So what's the hardest season of your life that you're now most grateful for?
Man, it's funny how I was 22 when I really felt the call to be a pastor. And what I thought at 22 is so different than what I know now. I didn't realize how much pain and heartache I was going to experience in my early years. And I don't want a pastor that hasn't experienced a lot of pain and a lot of heartache, dude. And that's the thing about ministry that's so weird, Hunter. It's not like the corporate world where like you can go develop skills and grow and get promoted. Truly, dude, I remember being 22 and I was like, I'm going to plant a church. God has called me to plant a church. And I was so driven. I was always the team captain. I was always the strongest guy. I was always that performer. And I was like, I'm going to plant a church and I'm going to reach thousands of people. Little did I know it was going to be 10 years later when I would finally step into a lead pastor position. And that year of watching my mom have her stroke and having to enter into that pain every weekend when I would go visit her. Pastoral ministry is, yes, it's preaching and teaching God's word, but you are voluntarily choosing to enter into the pain of other people every single week. And brother, it is a high calling. It is a heavy calling, and it costs a lot.
I've heard someone say your areas of biggest woundedness are your areas of biggest opportunity.
They should be.
So it makes sense.
They should be.
What you say. What's something about you that would surprise people who think they know you?
I always am weary of telling people this because I don't want them to like feel like I'm not approachable, but I am extremely introverted. Extremely. And all that means is the way I recharge looks different.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, well, you talk in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Nothing kills my soul more than small talk with people I don't know. Just destroys me. So that's something that people wouldn't know about me.
You like to go deep with people.
I like to go deep with people, and I like to like know people. Yeah.
Makes sense. Surprisingly, I think a lot of famous performers and celebrities are introverted for the same reason.
Yeah.
What's something you used to believe strongly that you've completely changed your mind on?
Oh my gosh, dude. This was something when I was young and dumb, but you still see people who grew up and just still don't realize this. Not every single one of your opinions needs airtime. Like, dude, it boggles my mind how when I was in my early 20s, I would just talk about everything that bothered me. I wanted everybody to hear my opinion. And I'll be on social media today and it's like someone tries to give a seminar on why Republicans are evil or why Democrats suck or why Biden is the Antichrist or why Trump, and I'm just like, dude, you're not going to change anybody's mind. So stop wasting this energy sharing an opinion that is literally not going to make a difference.
Everybody has a platform.
Yeah, bro. Everybody has a platform. That's right. And it's not that I don't want to hear people's opinions, but like when it's just to cause rivalry and division, oh man. I thought that I needed to share all of my opinions, and I realized very quickly, especially in ministry, that's not a wise thing.
What it's done for me over the years is like you see it from everybody, so you just tune everything out, and then you just have to pick a few people that you trust, and then that's who you listen to.
Yes. And that's something that I'm kind of fighting against, Hunter, too, if I'm being honest, man. Part of me is afraid to like put my opinions out there because I don't want to turn people away from the gospel because they're like, oh, this pastor believes this. You get what I'm saying? And so part of it is having to trust like, hey, God is going to use my conviction.
Right.
And I have to trust that.
He will.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. All right. What has fatherhood done to how you lead?
Oh my gosh, man. It has made me a more empathetic leader for sure. And I tell people all the time, like, you're giving your life to this organization, to the church, but don't sacrifice the life of your family. Don't. And I don't want to be the kind of leader that expects that of people, man. And even I have to check it. As being a lead pastor is similar to being a leader of an organization, different weights, but I can never turn it off, ever. And I tried to act like I could. And my mentor, who I went to for coaching, Kenton Beshore, he did a good job of honoring all of us and saying, you guys carry a weight that nobody else can even dream of understanding. And being a father reminded me that my responsibility as a pastor is to make sure that people are not sacrificing their family to the church, to their job, to their hobby, So it's everything, man. It's everything, because that's the legacy that we leave on that makes the biggest difference.
What kind of husband and father are you?
I would say I try my best to be a husband and father that fights for the wholeness and well-being of my family. I try to grow in this, man. I'm not always good at articulating this, but I leave my house every morning and I'm like overwhelmed at the responsibility that my wife has. And I texted it to her the other day because I was too big of a coward to say it to her face. And I just said, hey, you're carrying a way heavier weight than I am. And I need you to know that you're doing it with excellence, with elegance. And I just said, please, know that.
Going to work is a break.
Yeah, dude. Seriously, for real. It is, man. Yeah.
Tell me about the podcast.
Yeah, dude. Nick and I are in the works of storing up some episodes and trying to create a podcast.
Like you're storing them up for winter.
Yeah. Honestly, dude, it's the hardest thing is taking that first step of action. And it's funny, we've done all the hard work of recorded 5 episodes, but we haven't put it out there yet. And it's that, well, which should we do it on this platform? Should we have a separate? And it's just silly, dude. But I think finally we're going to start putting ourselves out there in a way that is going to bring a lot of good and healing to the world.
You know what I did with this podcast? At the beginning of the year, I knew I wanted to do it and I knew I wasn't going to be able to start it. I wouldn't have time to do it until I sold the Flowood Gym. So my goal at the beginning of the year was to have 100 episodes out by the end of the year. And I knew that would be, then I kind of knew when I needed to have it started by. And then I ended up selling the gym. I finalized it a couple months later. And so then I knew, I was like, all right, I got about a month and a half before I got to start getting these episodes out. And then, so it was like down to the wire, and to the point now where I'm on pace. I have to put out 2 extra ones. So I think I'm going to put one out on New Year's Eve and like a special 50th on a special day to get 100. But that was what I had to do for myself.
Yep.
and hold myself accountable. And so maybe y'all doing one a week?
Our goal is to, and again, we need to set up a long-standing studio, but our goal is to batch record 3 to 5 episodes every time we sit down, and have them be like anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. So we will put out one a week. Yeah, that'll be the goal.
So if you started, y'all could have 25 out. Y'all could probably have 20 out by the end of the year.
Yeah, that'd be huge. So that'll be our goal, 20 by the end of the year.
I'm giving y'all public.
I appreciate it
publicly.
And
trying to light a fire.
And that's why I need Enneagram 3s in my life, bro.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so, we're gonna set a goal. We're gonna get after it.
Thank you.
What's next for your church?
Oh man, we just kind of have these 3 little taglines that we're going to go after. We want to passionately pursue those who are far from Jesus. Passionately. It says Jesus, he shared a story where he leaves the 99 for the 1. Was not a good business decision, right? But that's what passion does. Compassion moves you, and it's sacrifice. We want to passionately pursue those who are far from Jesus, and we want to radically grow the believers in our church. We want them serving, we want them giving, we want them leveraging their entire lives for the advancement of the kingdom of God. And I truly do think, man, that there's going to be a wave, a move of God in Gluckstadt, Madison from Vertical Church. I believe that.
Awesome. How are you going to do that?
We're going to do
that. Is that proprietary?
Yeah. Proprietary. No, man. So it's different for every church, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going to do that by intentionally developing leaders.
Oh, cool.
That's how we're going to do it.
Awesome.
I have a great staff team that, dude, I could take on the world with my staff team. But the problem is that we can't do it all on our own.
Right.
We have to develop leaders and invite other people in to what God is doing in our church. So
awesome.
that's what we're going to do, man.
Awesome. Someone feels called to ministry. They're scared to do it, scared of what it's going to cost them. What advice would you give them?
Man, this is not the glamorous or sexy advice. I seriously would say, go and start serving in your local church at the lowest totem pole. I can't stand, I was the same guy. I remember I got my scholarship to seminary, and I reached out to my college pastor. The church, he wasn't my college pastor. He was the pastor of a huge mega church that I went to in college. And I set up a lunch with him. Long story short, his assistant called me and said, hey, Pastor Jeff couldn't make it. So he stood me up is what I thought, right? And I was like, I've never served a day in this man's church. And I'm reaching out to him to see if he's got an internship for me. And so from that moment, I went back to my home church and I served in the kids ministry, literally 3rd graders, 4th graders. So I would tell anybody, if you feel called to ministry, you go start serving in your local church and do not look for any recognition. You just go start serving. And I promise you, God will blow doors open. Go start serving.
What do you wish I would have asked you about that I didn't?
That's a good question, man. I didn't expect you to ask any of the spiritual warfare stuff. I look forward to a future podcast episode where we dig deep on that stuff. Dude. Yeah. For real.
Yeah. I'll have to do some homework before I do that. I read, and now I'm going to forget what it is. I couldn't remember what it was on Jared's podcast either. Your Story Has an Enemy, I think was a book. And then I read This Present Darkness when I was in high school. Have you heard of that book? And Piercing the Darkness. It's like a fictional book, but it's about spiritual warfare, and angels and demons and stuff. Yeah. It's fascinating, man. Another one, dude, and you might have read this one, Live No Lies by John Mark Comer. Oh, dude. It's good. For the times that we're in right now, put it on your list, dude. There was a guy that was on Josh Howerton's podcast that was talking about he thinks the end times are in the next 20 to 30 years. He made a very
compelling,
very compelling argument.
I'm never going to act like I know, because God's word tells us nobody will know. But I mean, dude, I don't disagree with that. I think it could be easily in our lifetime.
Yeah, and Josh Howerton, I won't get into it.
So get right with the Lord. Yeah, y'all get in the local church.
That's right. Nate, this was so good, dude. Where can people find you, visit Vertical Church, and follow what you're building?
Yeah, man. I will tell everybody that's local to the Madison Gluckstadt area. If you are not in a local church, come check out Vertical Church. We're right off Gluckstadt Road, literally right next to the Reunion Stables. That's what people kind of know that landmark as. Mm-hmm. Every Sunday, we gather at 9:15 a.m. or 10:45 a.m. You do not have to come in your Sunday's best. So
you can wear a football uniform?
Yeah, you can wear a football uniform.
I've seen someone do it before.
Come check us out. And you can follow me on, I'm most active on my Instagram at Nathan Reed Hughes. So you can connect there. I would love to connect with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
You're welcome, bro. Thank you.